Chapter 1553. After listening to Zhang Ziqin's introduction of the other people, Wang Ling and Wang Ying could more or less analyze Dao Ancestor Wang's temper and character. They were surprised to find that Dao Ancestor Wang was actually a particularly narrow-minded person. Could a grandmaster of the cultivation world not tolerate even a speck of sand in his eyes? Wang Ling was suspicious of this. Listening to all kinds of bizarre reasons for being suppressed, he felt that he shouldn't just listen to these people's side of the story. These people had all been ancient experts who had once commanded the world. After being suppressed in this corpse picture for so long, there was no guarantee that they would be mentally healthy. It was inevitable that their minds would become distorted, which would distort the truth. In Wang Ling's experience, as long as two parties were involved, you absolutely couldn't just listen to one side. If you easily believed one side and were eager to pick a side, then in the end, once the situation reversed, the only one who would be embarrassed would be yourself. Wang Ling had seen this kind of thing too many times in the current internet age, let alone in ancient times. There were indeed a lot of people who exaggerated things in order to attract other people's attention. A while ago, Wang Ling had even seen a female parent who had splashed red ink on her daughter's school uniform because she had a disagreement with a teacher, and said that the teacher was abusing her daughter at school. Why was it that the most basic trust between people was gone now? Wang Ling felt that he should look for the reason in these people. Everyone who consumes generously should reflect on themselves. On this side, Wang Ling was deep in thought. He heard Zhang Ziqin suddenly laugh in the picture. Dao Ancestor Wang's actions are hard to fathom. People like us who were suppressed in here sometimes wonder if we're really seeing Dao Ancestor Wang. I know that you must think that Dao Ancestor Wang is the creator of cultivation, and that a grand family shouldn't be so narrow-minded. But sometimes, facts speak louder than words. If you don't believe me, there's nothing I can do. Speaking up to this point, Zhang Ziqin seemed to remember something, and then said, "That's right, you can ask old God about this." Wang Ling and Wang Ying. Seeing that Wang Ying's expression wasn't right, Zhang Ziqin seemed to instantly understand something. In that instant, even his voice was a lot lower. "Has she perished?" "Yes." Wang Ying nodded. Speaking of this, both Wang Ling and Wang Ying felt a little embarrassed. After all, the fall of the old god was related to them. Lotus Sun had struck him to death not long ago. The grass on the grave was probably several zhang high. For some reason, when Wang Ling restored Zhang Zipei's original appearance through the king's eye, he saw a deep sense of melancholy on his face when he mentioned old god. Wang Ying also saw this scene clearly. Although he didn't have the ability of the king's eye, as long as Wang Ling activated visual sharing, Wang Ling's shadow could clearly see the scene in front of him, although he wasn't too sure. But Wang Ying had an intuition that the relationship between Zhang Zipei and the old god might be more complicated than he had imagined. Although Zhang Zizi's side of the story made people think that the relationship between them was just a one-night stand in ancient times. But the expression on his face couldn't lie. Skeletons couldn't make out their expressions, and Zhang Zizi, like most of the people here, had forgotten how to manage their expressions after becoming a skeleton. Thus, Wang Ling was able to capture this scene now. Anyway, Zhang Zipei was a man with a story. There were so many ancient realm experts trapped in the corpse wrapping diagram. Given Wang Ling's temperament, he couldn't be bothered to continue looking for other candidates. His thoughts coincided with Wang Ying's. He had already decided to dig out some information from Zhang Zipei in front of him. "We want to know a few things. You just need to answer what you know. My master can rescue you. What do you think of this deal?" Wang Ying asked. He had thought that Zhang Zipei would happily agree. Unexpectedly, the other party just shook his head. "An ancient godly thief like me can't see the light of day. Whether I get out or not doesn't mean much to me." "Then what do you want?" Wang Ying asked. "My request is actually very simple. If you want to get information from me, I'll give it to you. If you want information from me, then help me look for descendants of my bloodline," Zhang Zipei said. "I've been suppressed here for too long, but I clearly remember that I have 3 sons. If they can smoothly continue my bloodline, there should still be descendants of mine in this world." "Are you so sure they're still alive?" "To be honest, I'm not too sure." Zhang Zipei snickered. After all, it's been too long. Looking for his descendants. This was Zhang Zipei's only wish now. Hee, I just wanted to satisfy my curiosity, Zhang Zipei said. Zhang Zizi whispered. If my bloodline can continue smoothly, I'm sure that the cultivation of the descendants who are still alive in this world won't be too high. You're an ancient expert, Wang Ying said. So what if I'm an ancient expert? Being suppressed in the corpse picture, I've already lost the chance to pass on my legacy to my descendants. Even if they can continue my bloodline, without the inheritance of the primitive orthodoxy, generation after generation will only become weaker and weaker. Zhang Zipei said, since your master has the ability to get me out of this corpse picture, it shouldn't be difficult to find my descendants. Of course. Wang Ying nodded. At this point, the negotiations between the two sides had come to a successful conclusion. Wang Ling had received a new task. Find Zhang Zipei's descendants in exchange for information. This indeed wasn't a difficult task for Wang Ling. He just needed to use his power of sight to track the bloodline later. Zhang Zipei knew that his answer was actually a little rude, because he himself didn't know if his bloodline could be passed on. If there was no one to pass on, he actually had nothing to say. Somewhat curious, Zhang Zipei looked at Wang Ying and Wang Ling and said, if I don't have descendants, then this deal will be considered a failure. Although Zhang Zipei knew a lot about ancient matters and many secrets, he actually didn't want to say them out loud. This was the law of heavenly Tao and equivalent exchange. Wang Ling also understood this principle. Zhang Zipei felt that the chances of this happening were slim, and it was just a casual request. But at that moment, Wang Ying looked at him solemnly. Don't worry, my master will definitely find them. Even if he doesn't, he can still help you. Even if I have to dig up a grave and reincarnate, I'll find one for you. A lot of question marks instantly popped up in Zhang Zipei's mind. Actually, he had long since noticed that there was something strange about this youngster in front of him. He had opened the corpse wrapping picture with his bare hands, and with his strength alone, he had suppressed this group of ancient experts to the point where they didn't dare to say anything. And most importantly, the other party could actually violate the law of heavenly Tao which Tao ancestor Wang had set up. What kind of person was this youngster? At that moment, Zhang Zipei stole a glance at Wang Ling's red eyes, as if deep in thought. It was almost noon on Friday, December 18th. The upper-class student exchange meet that Leek Sasaki had mentioned earlier was about to begin. There was a small forest built into Jiudaoan High School trench, and this time, Area S exchange meet would be held in this forest hut. It's up ahead. Following Leek Sasaki through the long cobblestone path, the number 60 high group finally saw the slightly fantastical forest hut, which was built directly on top of a big tree. This was a 1,000-year-old tree, and its base was so huge that more than 50 people wouldn't be able to wrap their arms around it. The branches on it were dense and crisscrossed, and the noon sun seeped through the gaps between the leaves, leaving behind fragments of light on the ground that moved with the wind. According to Leek Sasaki, this forest hut had originally been used as a place for special training. It required the dean's office's approval before it could be used. The Rainbow Seven Suns choosing this place as the venue this time could be considered to have fully utilized the capitalist advantage of Area S students. This was originally a very tranquil place. Wang Ling didn't really dislike his surroundings, and instead liked them a little. It was just that with so many people around, his mood wasn't as pleasant anymore. Can we really do this? Jiayin dropped her forehead into her hand. She was wearing Lotus Sun's dress, and her face was red with embarrassment. Because of her profession, it had been a long time since she had worn a dress in front of outsiders. She usually dressed more neutrally when she went out, and the only time she wore a dress was when she met people she knew. But now that Lotus Sun was pretending to be Ryoko Komiya, Jiayin had no choice but to pretend to be Lotus Sun to fill in for Lotus Sunday. In number 60 high school, everyone's eyes were still on the 3 students who were going to be the exchange students this time. On the other hand, Jiayin, who appeared as an assistant teacher, would not attract too much attention. I think this is pretty good. You're usually so pretentious, it's good to change up once in a while. Wang Ming grinned and encouraged her on the side. But Jiayin was still hesitant. On one hand, she was shy. On the other hand, She felt that the circuit diagram was starting to become a little confusing. There's nothing to be afraid of. In any case, if anyone comes to talk to you, just politely decline with a smile on your face, Wang Ming said, sounding very practiced. Hearing this, Wang Ling and Lotus Sun vaguely sensed that the atmosphere wasn't right. If other boys come looking for me, are you sure you won't be angry? Jiayin asked again before entering the house. It wasn't until later that Wang Ling and Wang Ming realized that this was actually a suicide question. But that was Wang Ming's personality. Because he was used to being a straight man, he didn't think too much about it. In the face of Jiayin's question, he didn't even think to use the brain deduction technique to confirm the answer. Because he felt that this was a small matter, and it wasn't worth it for the two of them to get into an argument over it. Thus, Wang Ming answered without hesitation. Why should I be angry? It's an act to begin with. It's an act, but you clearly know that I'm not wrong, Jiayin said. Wang Ming? Question mark. It wasn't easy to understand a girl's mind. Before they fell in love, Wang Ming wouldn't have believed this. But now he believed it. When he gradually began to realize how strange this question of Jiayin's was, by the time he used the brain deduction technique, it would already be too late. Because there were only two paths in front of him. And no matter which one he chose, it would be his fault in the end. If he got angry, that would be exactly what Jiayin wanted. This guy just wanted to see him get jealous. But in the end he would be labeled as petty. If he didn't get angry, the consequences would be even more serious. He would be labeled as someone who didn't care about his girlfriend. Falling in love was a science. Sometimes seemingly simple problems were in fact much more complicated than scientific principles. Thus, Wang Ming's heart was now full of regret. He regretted that he hadn't straightaway settled Jiayin 2 days ago when he and Jiayin had been alone in Jiudao's dormitory. The little girl had watched too many TV dramas, and liked to let her imagination run wild. For some inexplicable reason, the scene fell into an awkward silence. Wang Ming had an answer in his mind. But in the end, both answers would be labeled. And they weren't the answers Wang Ming wanted to see. Thus Wang Ming, who really didn't know how to deal with this matter, sank into silence. This directly caused the atmosphere to sink into an even more intense depression. Rongchan, were they like this before? Leek Sasaki asked Lotus Sun, who was disguised as Ryoko Kwamiya, in a very low voice. I don't know either. Lotus Sun also didn't know how to answer Leek Sasaki. The main thing was that this was the first time the girl had encountered a cold war between couples, and she didn't have much experience in love. She didn't know how to deal with this at all. Seeing that they were about to reach the wooden hut, Lotus Sun tried to change the subject and change the atmosphere. In the end, Leek Sasaki suddenly said, Hey, if you quarrel at the head of the bed and reconcile at the end, I think the two of you should calm down. We're about to face a formidable enemy. We can't fight among ourselves, can we? Who's husband and wife with him? As soon as Leek Sasaki said this, Wang Ming and Jiayin folded their arms in unison, and turned their faces to the left and right. Leek Sasaki. Wang Ling. Lotus Sun. In Wang Ming's view, Jiayin was deliberately looking for a quarrel. This was all an act, wasn't it? Why did she have to think so much about it? He felt that, in the end, it was still a matter of trust. Jiayin didn't trust herself. That was what annoyed him the most. On the other side, Jiayin couldn't help feeling vexed by Wang Ming's silence. She actually knew that she was looking for trouble. But couldn't this guy just give her a way out? What was this silence supposed to mean? It was obvious that he didn't care about her. At that moment, the two of them were vexed over their own matters. Wang Ling and Lotus Sun hadn't expected the situation to actually develop to this point. They had thought that there couldn't be anything worse than the current situation. But Wang Ming's next words directly blew Jiayin's mind. Before entering the wooden hut, the more Wang Ming thought about it, the angrier he got, and he blurted out, If you want to think that way, there's nothing I can do. As soon as he said this, Jiayin's face instantly turned ugly. When Lotus Sun heard this, she knew that something wasn't right. If you want to think that way, there's nothing I can do. This was one of the top 10 sentences that girls hated most from boys. According to the latest ranking list data, this sentence was ranked third in terms of overall votes. Chapter 1554. Jiayin actually wasn't that angry to begin with. But the man in front of her wasn't romantic at all, and had actually said something like this before entering the wooden hut, which instantly made her depressed. When Wang Ming blurted out, "If you want to think that way, there's nothing I can do." Wang Ling, Leek Sasaki and Lotus Sun all felt the temperature around them drop a few degrees. Leek Sasaki looked like he was watching a show as he explained to Wang Ling on the side, "Queen Langsan, we absolutely can't say this. This is number 3 in the top 10 lines that girls hate most from boys." Wang Ling was about to ask what the first and second lines were. But Leek Sasaki continued, "The first is, I was wrong, alright? The second is, didn't I tell you earlier?" To be honest, Wang Ling actually didn't really know where on earth this specific ranking was coming from. However, just listening to these words would indeed give people a feeling of disgust. Sure enough, having a partner was the most troublesome thing. As expected, it was more important to study hard in high school. Wang Ling had never thought about getting into a flashy relationship, and was content with his current situation. Although it was a little different from his ideal peaceful life, at least it wasn't as troublesome as he had imagined. In Wang Ling's view, men and women in love were just asking for it. Why bother? It was actually quite good to be single. At least at this stage, it could be said that Wang Ling didn't have any thoughts about this. Similarly, given his personality, he felt that in a few years, or even 10 years, he wouldn't have a girlfriend. Why did he need a girlfriend? Wang Ling didn't understand. In his view, this was a form of restraint. So it was impossible to find one. Even if he, Wang Ling, was lonely for the rest of his life, starved to death, or jumped down from here. By the way, what magic treasure did Queen Langsan bring this time? As his thoughts swirled in his mind, Leek Sasaki's words once again broke the dead silence. He was a smart man, and intended to ease the tension a little. The main thing was that the current situation was too tense. Even a blind person could tell that something was wrong with Wang Ming and Jiayin's quarrel. She was the first to take out her magic treasure. It was an azure gem that lay quietly in her palm, giving off the aura of the ocean. Chive Sasaki was surprised. He looked over and found that there was the sound of rolling waves in the round gem. These can't be Dragon Balls, right? Chive Sasaki began to display the unique imagination of a Sun Islanders. This is a Sea Kingdom magic ball. It's a magic treasure made from precious crystals from the deep sea and precious herbs. When worn on the body, it could delay aging and maintain vitality. It can also help with sleep and rest at night. Lotus Sun said, "If you can't memorize the book, just put this thing in your mouth and recite what you saw. It has the same effect as the memory bread." Amazing! Leek Sasaki praised. Because he knew that Lotus Sun was playing Ryoko Kamiya, in order to ensure that he didn't slip up, he avoided using prefixes like Ryoko-chan or Ryoko-chan. Now that there were so many eyes, if he accidentally said something wrong, then everything would be exposed. The Sea Kingdom Magic Ball was originally Lotus Sun's trump card, but for this girl who had already seen the world, this magic treasure wasn't so valuable anymore. Its current effect might not even be as good as the White Rabbit creamy candies that Wang Ling had given her, but it was absolutely enough to intimidate these high school students on this occasion. For the students who were still studying, this Sea Kingdom Magic Ball was a godly learning artifact. An immortal-grade magic artifact was something that students would fight over. But these things were just toys in Wang Ling's eyes. Some of them couldn't even be considered toys. So what if they were holy weapons or world-defying magic artifacts? Wang Ling could easily fabricate those things. Then, what treasure did Langsan bring this time? Lotus Sun asked at that moment. Wang Ling was dazed for a moment when he spoke. The main thing was that Lotus Sun and Ryoko Kamiya really weren't that different from each other, from their appearance to their voice. Even her breasts had been further optimized, becoming very flat. In this aspect alone, she was already 99% similar to Ryoko Kamiya. He casually put his hand in his pocket. Wang Ling was feeling around for the things he had brought. He had originally planned to bring Jinka along with him, but later, he had found something that was even more low-key than Jinka's. This was a peachwood branch he had brought from a peach forest in the Sword King world. It was Jinka's birthplace. It was also a consumable material that could be used to repair Jinka's body once it was worn out. Leek Sasaki thought Wang Ling was joking. But when he focused his eyes on it carefully, in a split second, he actually fell into a momentary trance. What on earth is this? Leek Sasaki felt that all his attention had been drawn to this little peachwood branch, although he couldn't say exactly why. However, Chike Sasaki could feel a special spirituality coming from this peach branch. The spirit power flowing out of the peachwood branch was like the hand of a fairy, gently caressing Leek Sasaki's heart. It seemed to be able to completely calm a person's thoughts, and had a strange power to calm the years. The moment Wang Ling took out the peachwood branch, the atmosphere around them seemed to instantly ease up a lot. Jinka had told Wang Ling earlier that the spirit power and aura emitted by this peachwood branch could make people feel peaceful and calm. Furthermore, it had the effect of reflect on yourself 3 times a day. Now that Wang Ling had experienced it for himself, he finally knew what it meant. This was because of the peachwood branch. At that moment, Wang Ming and Jai Yin had both started to reflect on themselves. They were regretting their impulsive remarks just now. The peachwood branch's ability to reflect on yourself 3 times a day was too strong, and exceeded Wang Ling's expectations. In less than a few seconds, these two people who had been in a cold war, and didn't look like they would be able to reconcile for the time being instantly faced each other, and spoke in unison. I have something to say to you. I have something to say to you. You first. You first. Seeing this, Leek Sasaki hurriedly led them to the foot of the wooden hut up ahead. At a time like this, he thought it would be better to leave them alone. In the end, it was also at that moment that Wang Ling saw Wang Ming and Jai Yin hugging each other from a distance. They've reconciled. That's great. Lotus Sun was secretly happy. But the truth was that the Rainbow Seven Suns gang members in the treehouse happened to see this scene. President. Big news. Come and see. A new member of the Purple Maple Club cried out from the window. What's all the fuss about? Then, following this member's direction, President Moriyama Keed of the Purple Maple Club saw this scene from a distance. Then, he wore the emoji of an old man looking at his phone in the subway. I remember this Lotus Sun. Doesn't she like that Queen Lang sang? Why is she suddenly hugging Wang Xiao'er? I know, President. They all believe in Wang. So we must have made a mistake. It didn't matter who Lotus Sun liked. At that moment, Moriyama Keed was already completely confused. The rich circle was really messy. Chapter 1555. As the saying went, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will emerge victorious in every battle. In order to grasp this Holeng Seng's weakness, Sun Shanfeng had investigated a lot of things. Many of them were rumors on the internet, and their veracity had yet to be determined. But as the saying went, public opinion could melt gold. As long as all these rumors were listed down and verified by the comprehensive search rate and the witnesses found, it was basically possible to determine whether the information was true or false. But just as Sun Shanfeng wanted to summarize the information before today's high society student exchange meet, something very strange had happened. All the information he had gathered on Holeng Seng had disappeared. Moreover, before the meeting began, he couldn't remember anything about Holeng Seng at all. His memory was a mess, like a mosaic of paste. What the hell? Feeling helpless, Sun Shanfeng could only focus on this part of the information. Based on the summary of the information, Lotus Sun had a good impression of this Holeng Seng. Sun Shanfeng thought he could make a big deal out of this at the exchange meet. He only needed to make that Holeng Seng unable to get off the stage. In this regard, he felt that he could look for inspiration from the recently circulated Dragon King's son-in-law, as well as that war god with a crooked mouth. Holeng Seng was an ordinary kid with a poor family background. Furthermore, he didn't have any talent. So many people in 9 Paths and Class S had already reached the Golden Core stage in Grade 1. How could a foundation establishment cultivator like him strut around? In 9 Paths and High School's Tieba, Sun Shanfeng had already arranged for some people from Purple Maple Club to organize posts. Why is a poor Holeng Seng favored by a rich woman? Do you think you're the Azura Dragon King? Talk about how to be a pretty boy and attract a rich woman to keep you as a mistress. With this method, you won't have to worry about the rest of your life. a foundation establishment cultivator, can also participate in the high society student exchange meet in Zone S? I've never seen such a shameless person. Epic disgrace. 9 Paths and High School's Sun Island is #1 in the world, actually allowing foreign aid to join the delegation. Are you worthy? It was Sun Shanfeng who had come up with these very clickbait posts. Unfortunately, if it wasn't for the urgency of the matter, he felt that it would have been a good advertisement. With these posts and the exchange meeting, everyone had to bring a magic treasure with them. But Sun Shanqi really wanted to see what on earth Wang Ling would take out. He had been gleefully waiting for the exchange meet to start, just waiting to see Wang Ling make a fool of himself. In the end, the scene in front of him completely messed up Moriyama Kid. No. Did I lose my memory? I shouldn't have lost my memory, right? Lotus Sun clearly likes that Bak Lang sang. Why is she hugging that guy called Wang Xiao? Sun Shanqi felt very uncomfortable. Guild leader, what should we do now? When the others saw this scene, they were at a loss as to what to do. Don't panic. Moriyama Maple pretended to be calm. In fact, he didn't know what to do either. But since the plan had been set, it was too late to change it now. He could only continue to act according to the original plan. A few minutes later, number 60 High School's Wang Ling and the others were led into the treehouse by Chive Sasaki. The living room in the treehouse was very spacious. In order to accommodate the exchange meeting, it had been rearranged. Long dining tables were joined together and divided into 3 rows, each of which was filled with Sun Island's local delicacies, desserts, and drinks. All of them were cultivation food. As soon as Wang Ling entered, the noisy scene instantly quieted down, and a lot of people looked in his direction. After a few seconds of silence, whispers of discussion began to ring out nearby. Most of them were actually discussing Wang Ling based on the marketing style posts that Moriyama Kid had posted. Led by Moriyama Kid, the fact that 9 Paths and the delegation had allowed an outsider to join had indeed aroused dissatisfaction among some students in Area S. The most important thing was that Wang Ling's participation had been approved by the student union. Moriyama Kid had set up such a big game of chess. It looked like a revenge operation against Wang Ling. However, his real goal was still the 9th Path and the student council. As long as they operated well this time and pulled down Chive Sasaki, the president of the student union who was in the limelight, 9 Paths and the high school would be completely under the control of their Rainbow Seven Sons gang. As a matter of fact, Leek Sasaki and Sparrow had long since seen through such a plot. The moment they saw Moriyama Kid, Chive Sasaki and Moriyama Kid looked at each other from a distance. Their seemingly calm expressions were in fact surging undercurrents. Chive Sasaki, this time I'll definitely pull you down. Moriyama Kid, this time I'll definitely let you join the cult. As their gazes met, the two of them communicated their thoughts to each other. On the side, Wang Ling could hear everything clearly. Wang Ling knew that Chive Sasaki's message was actually aimed at the student union. In the other party's eyes, Wang Ling was nothing more than cannon fodder that could be used. Wang Ling actually didn't take this childish behavior to heart. Even a brat who lacked education had a chance to turn over a new leaf. Look at number 59 High School's Tang Jingze and He Buffing. At the very beginning, they had also racked their brains trying to target him. And now, it was said that they had all joined the Grey Sect. Wang Ling actually didn't reject this behavior of the Grey Sect's fan club. Back then, because of Crispy Noodles' substitute essay, Wang Ling had accidentally packaged him as a little genius at writing essays. Wang Ling felt that this was something he could use to his advantage. At the very least, he could divert some people's attention. He could make those people not focus on his true battle strength. As the saying went, a scholar was useless. What Wang Ling's essay had given him was this kind of delicate jade-faced scholar skin. On the contrary, it made him even more unremarkable. The people in the Grey Sect's fan club were relatively more cultured, and could help him cover up. The main thing was that the cult leader was Lotus Sunday. This instead made Wang Ling feel exceptionally at ease. As for those fake posts online, Wang Ling didn't take them to heart. He didn't need to deal with this matter now. Sparrow could handle it on her own. Wang Ming had already used Old V's identity as the top hacker in the hacker circle to accept Sparrow as his disciple. Currently, Wang Ming had full control over the situation on Sparrow's side. Thus, it was already very obvious who would be the real winner in the end in Sun Shanfeng's scheme. What was more, the Rainbow Seven brothers now had Lan Lan Lu, the new president of Blue Face Society, whom Feng had roped in as a mole. It was said that after Lan Lan Lu joined the Rainbow Seven brothers, he had privately won over several other presidents. That was to say, if Lotus Sun stepped forward as the head of the Grey Sect and shouted Rainbow Seven Brothers disband, perhaps the entire venue, Sun Shanfeng would be the only one left. Thus, Wang Ling was exceptionally calm in the face of the menacing Sun Shanfeng. When Wang Ling stepped into the venue, he saw a lot of puzzled expressions on the faces of the people around him. In the air, the background music of Little Friend, "Do you have a lot of question marks?" seemed to be faintly discernible. It was only at that moment that Jia-yin remembered that she was now playing the role of Lotus Sun, and she had actually hugged Wang Ming in front of so many people just now. The situation turned awkward for a moment. Rong, I'm sorry. I was so excited just now that I forgot. Jia-yin immediately apologized to Lotus Sun in the independent team's mental voice channel that the members of number 60 high school had set up. The main thing was that she really hadn't thought too much about it after that rush of energy just now. The power of Wang Ling's Peachwood branch, reflect on myself 3 times a day, was too strong. And in that split second, she and Wang Ming had fallen into a path that was hard to turn back from. And all they could think about was apologizing. It's all right, Sister Factor. If you and Brother Ming can make up, that's really good, Lotus Sun replied. I'm sorry, it's my fault. Jia-yin didn't know what to do. Come to think of it, this could also be considered an undercover mission. It was very different from the kind of life and death special forces operations she had carried out before. And for a moment, Jia-yin really didn't have any ideas on how to deal with the situation in front of her. Lotus Sun realized that Jia-yin was in fact a straight woman who was straightforward and didn't like to beat around the bush. She felt that this was probably one of the main reasons why Wang Ming liked Jia-yin. Sister Factor, it's good that you can relax a little. Follow my instructions from now on. Then what should I do next? I think you should let go of Brother Little Ming first. Lotus Sun gave an awkward but polite smile. After saying this, Jia-yin and Wang Ming reacted like birds startled by the mere twang of a bow. Lotus Sun couldn't help laughing in her heart. The quarrel had been sudden, and they had made up just as quickly. Was this what it felt like to be lovers? Lotus Sun was happy for the two of them, but at the same time she was a little envious. Wang Ling watched this scene from a distance, his face as unadorned as ever, devoid of any emotion. He couldn't see any emotion. The peach tree branch's self-reflection 3 times a day, power had been the lubricant for the two of them to reconcile. But when it came down to it, Wang Ming and Jia-yin actually didn't want to quarrel. That was why they had made up so quickly. According to Jinka's explanation, it was said that the fiercer the quarrel, the stronger the effect of self-reflection 3 times a day. If Wang Ming and Jia-yin had really quarreled to the point where they would have had to fight, at that time, the two of them probably wouldn't have just hugged each other in front of the treehouse. Instead, they would have directly knelt down and kowtowed to each other. At this thought, Wang Ling couldn't help trembling. This scene was too strange. Kowtowing to each other. Wasn't that like bowing to heaven and earth? There was a turbulent undercurrent in this venue now. Wang Ling felt that if he used his peach tree branch in the Magic Treasure exhibition later, when this self-reflection 3 times a day power spread throughout the entire venue, it would probably be a very exciting scene. While he was pondering this, Sun Shan-keed walked to the front of the venue with a glass of grape juice. He gave his swept-back hair a simple stroke to confirm that his hair gel hadn't fallen off. Then he cleared his throat, put on an old-fashioned expression, and began the next step in a very pretentious broadcast voice. Sun Shan-keed. Everyone. Today is an exchange meeting between our 9 paths and upper-class students. At the same time, it is also a celebration for our 9 paths and the newly elected 5-member delegation. Everyone is a young genius who reached the golden core stage at a young age. Saying this, Sun Shan-keed swept Wang Ling a glance. You're different from those good-for-nothings at the foundation establishment stage. Wang Ling. Everyone has cultivated hard for so many years. I'm sure you have some magic treasures you can take out. Today's exchange meeting is also an exhibition of magic treasures. Sun Shanqi smiled. Then, according to the system's order of drawing lots, the students who have drawn a number will come up and show off their magic treasures. I'm really looking forward to seeing what dazzling treasures our 9 paths and the 5-member representative team can bring out. After saying this, he looked at Wang Ling again. Wang Ling silently ate the crispy noodle snacks in the venue's snack area. It was said that Leek Sasaki had specially arranged for Lan Lan Road to prepare something else. Of all the high-end cultivation food in the venue, Wang Ling felt that this crispy noodle snack was the best. After the system drew a number, the first person to come up on stage very quickly. Although it was a number draw, Sun Shanqi had actually arranged the numbers in advance. The first person to come up was one of Sun Shanqi's henchmen, who was also a student from Area S. This young man carried a huge potted plant with a blue and white porcelain pattern about half a meter in diameter. He carefully walked up the steps and placed it on the ground. The magic treasure he was displaying was unexpectedly similar to Wang Ling's. Although the difference in spirituality between this and the peach tree branch in the Sword King world was too great, at least they had the same idea. Unfortunately, most of the people here had never seen the world before. Even the spirituality of this tiny potted spirit plant was enough to make a lot of people gasp in amazement. This is a 100-year-old purple cherry blossom. Someone recognized the origin of the purple seedling in the potted plant. Cherry blossoms were the island flowers of Sun Island. The so-called 7 days of cherry blossoms referred to the short period of 7 days from when a cherry blossom bloomed to when it withered. And the cherry blossom in this young man's hand was of the highest quality. This was a 100-year-old purple cherry. It was a spirit plant that was qualified to be classified as an auxiliary magic artifact. Even in its seedling state, the purple cherry could condense the spirit energy of heaven and earth, which could accelerate one's cultivation. If this purple cherry was planted in a room, it would be the same as setting up 10 spirit gathering arrays in the room. A 100-year-old purple cherry blossom is 100 years old in its seedling stage alone. After 100 years, the purple cherry blossom will grow overnight and turn into a purple cherry tree that will bloom. Someone exclaimed. The purple cherry blossom would automatically mature on a random day after 100 years. But after the purple cherry blossom bloomed, it would remain for a shorter time than a normal cherry blossom. It would wither after 7 hours. And the fully grown purple cherry tree would quickly wither and turn back into a seed. These fallen purple cherry petals would become nutrients. The seed would receive nutrients that would circulate. Thus, the purple cherry blossom also had another name, reincarnation cherry. There was a poem that said, "Turn into the spring mud to protect the flower." This was the most suitable description for the purple cherry blossom. Purple cherry blossoms were very rare on the market. And purple cherry blossoms that had a certain number of reincarnations were even more pitifully rare. This purple cherry seedling in my hand has already passed 100 years. And this year is the 7th reincarnation of this purple cherry, the young man said proudly. 7 round purple cherry? Many people in the field revealed stunned expressions. It was said that purple cherry blossoms were priceless, and the current market value of this 7 round purple cherry was at least 200 million. I'm sorry, everyone. This isn't anything special. It's a pity that this potted plant is over 130 years old. My dad gave it to me, but I haven't seen it blossom yet. The owner of the purple cherry, Sakai Toyonian, rubbed his head and smiled embarrassedly. Our friends from number 60 high who came all the way from abroad are also here today. There are too many eyes. I'm sure that my 7 round purple cherry pot is even more embarrassed. Saying this, Sakai Toyonian also glanced at Wang Ling like Moriyama Kid had done earlier. Then he snorted. They say that Queen Langsang is a mascot, and purple cherry is actually a symbol of luck. Today I will make a small bet. If my disappointing purple cherry blossoms can blossom today, then I will make a bet with you. If my disappointing purple cherry can blossom today, I'll give it to Queen Langsang as a gift. Wang Ling sighed silently in his heart. What was the point? He wasn't a junk collector. Chapter 1556. In the hearts of all the natives of Sun Island, Cherry blossoms were a symbol of holiness and beauty. Naturally, their status was extraordinary. Even ordinary cherry blossoms would inspire respect in the hearts of the people here. Not to mention the 7-wheel purple cherry that Sakai Toyota had brought. When he said that he would give the 7-wheel purple cherry to Wang Ling, Sakai Toyota knew that he was being a little presumptuous. After all, he really didn't intend to give the purple cherry away. He had secretly taken this purple cherry out of a glass incubator at home, using the trick of swapping a leopard cat for a crown prince. The one in the glass incubator now was a fake. Teenagers in high school were immature and liked to show off in front of others what others didn't have. Sakai Toyota was naturally no exception. Every time he wanted to show off, he would use a fake to replace the real one and show off the real one. After satisfying his vanity, he would exchange the real purple cherry for the fake one. Of course, if his father found out about this, Sakai Toyota felt that he might not be able to keep his legs. After all, this was a 7-wheel purple cherry, a treasure with a market value of 200 million yuan. Furthermore, it was the kind that would definitely be sold as soon as it was put up for sale, which was even easier than selling a house. Give it to Wang Ling? That was nothing more than a mocking remark. Even if the purple cherry blossoms were going to bloom, it wouldn't be now. Although the purple cherry blossoms would bloom randomly in 100 years, there was a basic rule to it. It was winter now in December, and there were no signs of ordinary cherry blossoms. As a treasure, the purple cherry blossoms naturally wouldn't bloom in winter. Anyone who knew about flowers would understand this point. Jiao Sasaki looked at him with disdain. This Sakai Toyota guy, his words are pretty. He clearly knew that it wouldn't bloom in winter. That's why he did this. The purple cherry is so delicate, how could it bloom? Jiao Sasaki muttered in a low voice as he listened to the endless chatter around him. But as soon as he said this, the purple cherry blossom seedling in the pot suddenly twitched as if it had been awakened by some sound. Jiao Sasaki thought his eyes were playing tricks on him, but the reality in front of everyone forced him to believe what he was seeing. This definitely wasn't just his illusion, because he wasn't the only one who had noticed it. Gradually, people began to talk about it. Look, isn't the 7-wheel purple cherry seedling moving? What? No way. It was December. Such a cold season. I don't think I'm mistaken. It really did move just now. Could it be that we were talking too loudly and were woken up? In an instant, the scene became lively. Although the sprout of the purple cherry blossom only trembled a little before it stopped moving, many people had indeed seen that movement. Could it be the wind? Someone doubted. It's definitely not a problem with the wind. At this moment, Lotus Sun also focused her gaze on the flower sprout. Because she was one with the sword with mysterious sea, her 6 senses were infinitely magnified. At the same time, he also obtained a passive skill that allowed him to listen to the sounds of all living things. The sea was an existence that nurtured all living things. Naturally, it could also listen to the voices of all living things. There was no other reason why the girl was stunned. This was because she had not only seen the purple cherry tree move just now, she could even hear the sound of the purple cherry. Lunatic. He moves me around every day for no reason, causing me to have menstrual disorders from time to time. I can't stand it anymore. I want a new master. Classmate Wang Ling. Brother Ming. For a moment, Lotus Sun was at a loss in the small team's independent mental voice channel. After all, not everyone had the ability to communicate with all living things. To most people, Ziying was just a support-type magical treasure, a rare spiritual plant. They couldn't understand what the purple cherry was saying, but it was different if they could understand it. Calm down, Miss Rong. You didn't hear wrong. This purple cherry is indeed speaking the cherry language, said Wang Ming. Wang Ming actually also had the ability to listen to all living things. He could adjust his brainwaves to the corresponding frequency based on the species of living things, and thus gain the ability to listen to all living things. It was just that the sound wasn't as clear as Wang Ling's and Lotus Sun's. There was no doubt that this was a very irascible purple cherry. Of course, it couldn't be completely blamed for this. After all, Sakai Toyota would move it from time to time and show it off. Even in this cold winter, it couldn't escape this calamity. This made this 7-wheel purple cherry feel deeply dissatisfied with Sakai Toyota. And in such a public setting, when the 7-wheel purple cherry heard that Sakai Toyota was going to make a bet and give it away, it could no longer suppress the anger it had been suppressing for a long time. All living things had spirits. In particular, when 7-wheel purple Ing sensed the faint aura of spirituality emanating from Wang Ling's body, she instantly became even more excited about the idea of changing owners. Sakai Toyota, ever mein Theskandalen Labur. And so, after the purple cherry's final roar that only Wang Ling and the others could hear, in an instant, the purple sapling in the pot grew at a speed visible to the naked eye. I didn't expect it to be a Zuan purple cherry. Wang Ming couldn't help laughing. The 7-wheel purple cherry's growth rate was beyond everyone's imagination. Under everyone's stupefied gazes, countless branches sprouted from the center of the rapidly growing purple cherry tree in all directions. The purple flower buds were like stars on a Christmas tree, instantly decorating the entire cherry blossom tree. Like the most brilliant fireworks in winter, they suddenly bloomed. On the stage, Moriyama Kid was stupefied on the spot. Glaring at Sakai Toyota, who was equally stupefied, he scolded in a very low voice, "Sakai, what the hell is going on?" I don't know either." Sakai Toyota himself was about to cry. "President, I think this purple cherry is playing me." Because he really had no intention of giving this purple cherry away. In the past, he had never failed to show off his 7-wheel purple cherry in front of others. Who the hell would have thought that this purple cherry would actually bloom in winter, which was out of season? Furthermore, it was after he had raised the flag of giving it away. Wasn't this acting at the level of a best actor? "So you're also a 100 Flowers movie queen?" However, at the next moment, the most shocking scene occurred. This purple cherry's branch slowly stretched out in Wang Ling's direction. At the head of the branch was a flower bud of twin purple cherry blossoms, which bloomed when it reached Wang Ling. "This is purple cherry's gift." So its back wave sang. "It really is a mascot." At that moment, someone finally couldn't help crying out in surprise. Chapter 1557. The probability of purple cherry blossoms blooming was very low to begin with. What was more, it was a cold winter day, and when the purple cherry blossoms, which symbolized holiness and luck, appeared in front of everyone, everyone's eyes were filled with amazement. Of course, if purple cherry blossoms blooming out of season were a miracle of nature, then this mystical phenomenon known as Purple Ying's gift, which was darting in Wang Ling's direction, was a miracle among miracles. Wang Ling looked around and saw that many of the people around him were dumbfounded as they stared in amazement at this magical scene. A lot of them wanted to take a photo of this miraculous scene with their cell phones. Their faces were full of devotion. There was no doubt that this was a super collision between the mascots. This was mascot plus mascot equals mascot plus. Repost this purple cherry gift photo. Bless with luck. Everything goes according to your wishes, and you pass every test. This pot of 7-wheeled purple cherry blossoms that had suddenly bloomed indoors was too beautiful to behold. Gorgeous purple petals with a magical hue were blown by the breeze outside the treehouse window. They were like petals that had fallen from the sky. This magnificent scene made people feel as if they were instantly placed in an outdoor garden of peach blossoms. The fragrance of the purple cherry blossoms assailed their nostrils. For a moment, everyone was dazzled. Ozel. So beautiful. This scene was so romantic that for a moment, the men and women at the scene couldn't be any more breathtaking. It was simply a beautiful wallpaper in real life. Every angle was breathtakingly beautiful. The only flaw was the people standing behind the purple cherry blossoms. At that moment, Sunshine Kid and Sakai Toyonian looked a little embarrassed. "Move aside. Hurry up and come down. Don't pollute the picture." Pollute. Sunshine Kid was furious. He wanted to say a few words of rebuttal, but in the end he didn't have the courage to do so in front of the purple cherry tree. Cherry blossoms were highly respected by the people of Sun Island, especially the 7-wheeled purple cherry blossoms in front of them. If they were disrespectful, they would probably suffer retribution. In fact, after being flustered and exasperated, Sunshine Kid was also reflecting on his behavior. His purpose in convening this exchange meet was to put Wang Ling on the spot. But he hadn't expected that he would be the one to lose face instead. Ziying, who had bloomed out of season, and Ziying's gift. All of this seemed to be the will and gift of the heavens. What Moriyama Maple was thinking about now was whether he had really done something wrong. In that instant, this miraculous vision made him wonder if he should oppose Wang Ling. Was I really wrong? Under the urging of the crowd, Moriyama Kid had no choice but to think while pulling Sakai Toyotani down from the stage. President, what should I do? Save the child. Sakai Toyotomi was the only one who looked like he was about to cry. Moriyama Kid glanced at Sakai Toyotani and said, "This is a vow you made yourself. In front of so many people, you better accept it. I will definitely be beaten to death by my father." Sakai Toyotomi's face was full of disappointment, and then he looked at Wang Ling with a face full of anger. This young prodigal son. I'm not finished with him. Guild leader. Hurry up and move to the next step. I can't wait to see the scene of him being mocked. However, to Sakai Toyotomi's surprise, after Moriyama Kid, who had originally planned this exchange meet, calmed down, he actually just sighed. There's no next step. Sakai Toyotomi. Question mark. Moriyama Kid. This is God's will. Maybe we really shouldn't have opposed the latter prodigal son. Sakai Toyotomi. In that instant, everything seemed to have started to change. As the instigator of this chess game, Moriyama Kid's quick change of heart caught Sakai Toyotomi off guard. But in fact, this was actually because the peachwood branch in Wang Ling's hand was playing an important role in the self-reflection 3 times a day skill. Wang Ling's body was now covered in single-use Dao talismans, so in theory, there was no possibility of his aura leaking out. Thus, based on Wang Ling's personal judgment, the reason why Ziying had extended her branch to him was most likely because of the peachwood branch in his hand. Wang Ling was a little surprised. A cherry blossom tree falling in love with a peachwood branch. This kind of story always sounded a little fantastical. But if you didn't know better, it actually sounded a little romantic. The effect was comparable to a Zhen falling in love with a Chang. When the two spiritual plants resonated emotionally, the peachwood branch's self-reflection 3 times a day, power directly spread out along with the fragrance of Ziying's flowers. This instantly dispelled Moriyama Kid's insistence on opposing Wang Ling. Sakai Toyotomi was still ridiculing Moriyama Kid's betrayal in his heart. But in the next second, as he smelled the fragrance of the flowers, he suddenly felt a sense of guilt. He started to realize that he actually didn't dare look Wang Ling in the eye. Because in front of Wang Ling, Sakai Toyotomi actually felt a sense of shame in his heart. He had obviously been scared to death, afraid that his father would beat him up for giving away this pot of Ziying, which was worth 200 million yuan, for nothing because of this meaningless bet. But now, Sakai Toyotomi suddenly felt that if he didn't fulfill his promise, it would be even scarier than being beaten to death by his own father. As a man of indomitable spirit, Sakai Toyotomi felt that he should take on the responsibilities of a man. Although he didn't know why there was such a huge change in the way he thought about it, he didn't know why. But this sense of shame and self-reflection was like a fishbone stabbing into Sakai Toyotomi's heart. A few seconds later, Wang Ling saw this scene from a distance. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done this," as he murmured. 2 streams of tears actually fell from the corners of Sakai Toyotomi's eyes. Then he quickly wiped them away and walked up to everyone again. Once again he walked in front of everyone. "I admit that my vanity is playing tricks on me, and I actually secretly brought this pot of Ziying out from home." Wang Ling. There were still traces of tears in the corners of Sakai Toyotomi's eyes. "But since I, Sakai Toyotomi, have made a promise, then I will definitely fulfill it. I will give Ziying to Ho Langsan." Wang Ling. Then after a moment of silence, thunderous applause rang out. "Good job, classmate Sakai. People who keep their promises are the most handsome." On this side, Sakai Toyotomi had just expressed his stance. Moriyama Kid also stepped forward and knelt on the ground in front of everyone to repent. "Ho Langsan. I was wrong. Also, I want to clarify to everyone that a lot of the posts about Ho Langsan that were published on the internet before were actually made up by me." He raised his head and looked at Wang Ling, his eyes red. Ho Lang-san, is it too late for me to apologize to you now? Wang Ling hadn't expected that the exchange meet aimed at him at noon would be so perfectly resolved by the power of that peach tree branch. This was a turn of events that Wang Ling hadn't expected. Apart from that, there was another thing that Wang Ling hadn't expected. That was, everything that had happened at this exchange meet had actually been filmed by Chive Sasaki and Sparrow, and then edited with special effects. They were going to use this video as a promotional video for the Grey Sect. Finally, they had used the previously registered account 9 Paths and the Grey Sect branch to directly post it on Bilibili. Ho Lang-san, Rong-chan brother heir, what do you think about the content of this video? Chive Sasaki obediently sent a preview of the video in a separate chat group that he had set up with Chive Sasaki. The title of the video was, Purple Cherry Blossoms are actually a gift to a member of the Grey Sect? 9 Paths and the Grey Sect branch. Welcome to join us and share our fortunes. Chive Sasaki handled the entire video very carefully. He only edited Wang Ling's back and didn't mention his name at all. He just used the identity of a member of the Grey Sect. As for the photos that had been distributed online, they had all been blurred by the Great Shielding Spell, and Wang Ling's appearance couldn't be seen at all. Well done, Lotus Sun praised in the group. Lotus Sun praised in the group. Keeping a low profile is the rule of our Grey Church. You handled this very well. Rong-chan, you flatter me. Chive Sasaki said, but I actually still haven't figured out why Moriyama Maple and Sakai Toyotomi would apologize in front of so many people. It shouldn't be just because they were reformed after seeing Ziying, right? Oh. What else do you think? Wang Ming asked, amused. Of course it's also because of Ho Lang-san's charisma. Although we can't see what he looks like in these photos online, that silhouette is very handsome. Staring at the screen, Lotus Sun smiled. Of course. Classmate Wang Ling is the best. Wang Ling. Chive Sasaki. Ah, that's right, Rong-chan. I've already received Moriyama Maple and Sakai Toyotomi's applications to join the Grey Sect. Lotus Sun was startled. They want to join the Grey Sect so soon? What's your opinion? Chive Sasaki. I think we still need to observe Moriyama Maple. As for classmate Sakai Toyotomi, I think we should satisfy his wish first. He said that this is his last request before his father beats him to death. Just tell him to be at ease. He won't be beaten to death. As long as he joins the Grey Sect and continues to support classmate Wang Ling, I will definitely protect him. Lotus Sun smiled. Speaking of which, the Grey Sect had become famous online this time. Actually, it was thanks to Sakai Toyotomi's bet that the program's effect had been maximized. In her heart, Lotus Sun was actually a little grateful to Sakai Toyotomi. Now that they had turned enemies into friends, everything else could be discussed. The 7-wheel purple Sakura had now become 8-wheel purple Sakura, and its value was a little higher than before. But it was only worth 500 million yuan at most. What does classmate Sakai Toyotomi's family do? Lotus Sun asked in the group. It's a spirit plant farm. We provide materials for a lot of pill companies, Chive Sasaki said. Okay, got it, the girl replied with a smile. At the same time, she already had a plan in mind. That afternoon, when Sakai Toyotomi returned home from school, he felt uneasy. He was worried about his father's scolding. After all, the purple Sakura was an important asset for the Sakai family. Moreover, it was an ancestral heirloom. Before Sakai Toyotomi had returned home, he had already taken a healing pill with a certain pain and numbing effect to prevent his father's *SS from exploding all over the mountain. He tiptoed in front of the porch, changed into slippers, and made his way to his bedroom like a thief. In the end, he had only taken 2 steps when a figure appeared behind him. Sakai. Stop right there. A dignified male voice stopped him. It was his father, Akira Sakai. Father. Sakai Toyotomi was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. Son, what's wrong? Akira Sakai went over to support him. Father. I shouldn't have made a bet with someone else and lost that purple Sakura. You can hit me. Sakai Toyotomi looked at the man in front of him. Why should I hit you? You sold it well, son. Ha. Just now the person in charge of Huagua Water Curtain Group's business department contacted me. He said that he saw your video online and was very touched to see that you kept your promise. They placed an order for 2 billion yuan for spirit plants. Sakai Toyotomi. ? That worked. Chapter 1558. Sakai Toyoto didn't expect things to take such a turn. Everyone knew that the so-called Grey Church was actually Holangsang's fan club. Previously, Sakai Toyotani had the thought of joining the Grey Church because of the peach tree branch's self-reflection 3 times a day power. However, Sakai Toyotani didn't expect that he would suddenly think of something. He actually let the family pick up such a huge order for free. At the end of the day, the Sakai family were businessmen. Even if that purple cherry was passed down from generation to generation and was priceless. But in the end it was only worth 500 million. But now, the Sakai family had obtained an order worth 2 billion and a long-term cooperation. Whether or not this deal was worth it could be calculated with one's toes. That evening, Sakai's father held a celebration banquet at home. Throughout the celebration banquet, Sakai Toyoto was not only happy, but he was also thinking about this matter. Huagua Water Curtain Group's actions this time would have been very difficult to explain if not for Miss Sun's help. Then why did Miss Sun do that? Was it because he had fulfilled his promise and decided to join the Grey Church to support Holangsang? In terms of intuition, Sakai Toyoto felt that Lotus Sun liked Wang Ling. But now here came the problem. What was going on in front of the treehouse at noon? Eldest Miss Lotus Sun clearly liked Wang Ling, so why was she hugging that Wang Xiao? After Sakai Toyotani sorted out the logic in his mind, he was instantly shocked. Damn. It was a triangular relationship. Son, what's wrong? You are the hero today. Why do you look so pale? Sakai's father looked at the pale Sakai Toyotani and asked with concern. This time he really didn't expect it. His son, who had always been disappointing and vain. He actually relied on this move to win the favor of Miss Sunday. He had secured such a huge order for the family. Sakai Nara felt gratified and moved by Sakai Toyoto's growth. He had to admit that this time Sakai was ahead of him. Dad, I'm fine. Sakai Toyotani said. He wiped his sweat with a hot towel handed to him by a servant and asked, Dad, I have something to ask you. Go ahead, Sakai said. If I know something about that Miss Sun. Stop. To Sakai's surprise, before he could finish his words, his father interrupted him. Sakai's father took a sip of sake and chuckled. Although our Sakai family's conditions aren't bad, the gap is still very obvious when compared to Huagua Water Curtain Group. Sometimes, don't judge something based on your own guesses. Otherwise, you will put yourself in a very dangerous situation. As long as it doesn't harm the interests of our Sakai family, it's not bad to be a fool. All you need to know is that Miss Sun has a good impression of that Holangsang. That's enough. In the future, I'll learn more from Holangsang and strive to get closer to him. Don't say anything else, don't make wild guesses, and don't talk nonsense. These words were like a bucket of wisdom that instantly woke Sakai Toyotani up. That was right. Many things were just wishful thinking on his part. His father was not wrong at all. Right now he only needed to know that Miss Sun had a good impression of Holangsang, and that was enough. On the evening of Friday, December 18th, while Sakai Toyotani's family was having a celebration party, in the student council office, Leek Sasaki was also summarizing the results of this exchange meeting. First of all, the Rainbow Seven, which was the most difficult to deal with, had been confirmed to have been completely conquered after this exchange meeting. In addition, with Lanlan Lu and Ono Tanaka secretly leading the way, many people who met the requirements chose to join the Grey Church. Even Leek Sasaki didn't expect this. Kyushin and the high school had been divided for so many years due to the competition between the student parties, but because of Holangsang, they actually became one again. Now, whether it was the student council of Kyushin or the original Rainbow Seven, they all belonged to Kyushin and the Grey Church. Almost all the S-class students had joined Kyushin and the Grey Church. There was no doubt that this was an unprecedented event. The Grey Church. They had completely taken over Kyushin. In the future, he would use the name of the student council president and the head of Kyushin and the Grey Church to apply to the school to abolish the student classification system. This system, which was full of contempt and gave rise to all kinds of school violence and bullying, should have been abolished long ago. Everyone had their own shining points and specialties. Since they were all students of the same school, they should understand the principle that they were bound together for good or ill. Leek Sasaki felt that he had learned this from Wang Ling. Look at number 60 high this time. Wasn't it just a tightly united group with the mascot Wang Ling as their representative? As expected of Holang Sang, Leek Sasaki realized that he was worshipping Wang Ling more and more. Although Holang Sang didn't say anything, every action seemed to have a deeper meaning, and people could learn a lot from him. Apart from this, there were two more things that had come out of this exchange meeting. The first was naturally the promotional video for the account Kyushin and the Grey Church branch on Bilibili. The gimmick of the 7-wheeled purple cherry blossoms blooming in an out-of-season manner had attracted a lot of attention and led to a large number of reposts. The number of coins in the video had already exceeded 30,000, and the number of views was close to 1 million. This was undoubtedly explosive data. The second thing was the new decision that Leek Sasaki and Lotus Sun had made regarding that pot of 8-wheeled purple cherry blossoms. Because Wang Ling wasn't interested in this thing. Thus, after discussing it with Lotus Sun, Leek Sasaki decided to sell off this priceless pot of 8-wheeled purple cherry blossoms, in the name of the Grey Church, and then donate the money for charity. On Sun Island, there wasn't a single student organization that could donate 500 million yuan in a short period of time. After Leek Sasaki made a public announcement using the account Kyushin and the Grey Church branch, it also attracted a lot of attention. There were a lot of media outlets who wanted to interview him, but Leek Sasaki declined all of them. As a literary exchange organization based on students with an attitude, keeping a low profile was the core of the Grey Church. As the branch head, he naturally wouldn't make such a mistake lightly. Everything was developing for the better. Back then, Leek Sasaki had decided to bring the Grey Church to greater heights on Sun Island. He hadn't expected his goal to achieve so much in such a short period of time. Just as Leek Sasaki was sighing with emotion from his position as president of the student union. At that moment, Sparrow suddenly pushed open the door and came in. "President, bad news." "What is it?" Leek Sasaki asked when he saw Sparrow's flustered expression. Sparrow handed over a document wrapped in red paper. Leek Sasaki's heart trembled when he saw the document. This was a warning letter from the Kyushin and the Academic Affairs Department. A warning letter? It wasn't that Leek Sasaki didn't expect this to happen. However, the moment he saw the warning letter, his heart was still stunned. As expected, it's just like what little bro said. "I can't escape from the school." Leek Sasaki sighed. For so many years, Kyushin and the high school had been ranked at the top of Sun Island. The school leaders had always attributed this result to the competition between Kyushin and the gangs formed by the students. They believed that only constant competition could make their students stronger. Therefore, the leaders of Kyushin and the high school turned a blind eye to the bullying that occurred due to the environment. As long as the school was ranked at the top, they couldn't be bothered to deal with the matters below them. So what if the students had psychological problems? That was because they had poor mental fortitude. In any case, Kyushin had an elimination system. They could just order the students to drop out of school. But now the competition system of student gangs had been implemented for so many years. Now it had suddenly been broken by an inexplicable gray sect. Of course, this was something that Kyushin and the school leaders couldn't tolerate. This warning letter was in fact a threat on the surface. There were two main things written in it. The first was to suspend Leek Sasaki from his position as president of the student union. The second was to demand that Leek Sasaki immediately disband the Kyushin and the Grey Sect branch. Otherwise, Leek Sasaki would directly drop out of school. "President, what should we do now?" Sparrow asked with a frown. "Just treat it as waste paper. We can't mess up," Leek Sasaki said. It was as he had said before. Wang Ming had anticipated this long before this warning letter had been issued. What if Kyushin and the leaders jumped out to oppose the establishment of the Grey Sect branch? The solution to this problem was actually very simple. Leek Sasaki and Wang Ming had already thought it through. That was to pull the leaders into the Grey Sect. Chapter 1559. In Jiudao's administration office, a middle-aged man whose head was so smooth that it reflected light said. He was dressed in a well-ironed suit with Jiudao's exclusive I badge on his chest. His mustache and monocle accentuated his elite temperament. On his desk was a business card box with the words, Yuki Jun-san. I miscalculated. I didn't expect these kids from number 60 high to be so capable, said Yuki Jun-san. He was the director of Jiudao's administration office. Jiudao didn't have a vice headmaster position, and was the school's overall manager apart from the headmaster. Jiudao had never made a mistake in implementing the grading system for so many years, and the school board's support for the grading system was unimaginable. It was just that Yuki Jun-san hadn't expected it to be broken by a few foreign exchange students this time. Do you think the warning letter will work? In the office, a blond foreign man with blue eyes smiled as he held a glass of red wine. Don't worry, Mr. Holland. I know very well who has the final say in the board. I won't delay it for long. It's just a literary exchange group set up by students. It's over. Yuki Jun-san smiled confidently. What on earth is that Ho Long-song's background? I don't think this youngster is simple, said Holland. I think Mr. Holland is overthinking things. In my opinion, that Ho Lang-sang is just a pawn. Yuki Jun-san frowned. So a pawn? Of course he is. Yuki Jun-san said. The real organizer behind the scenes is that eldest miss of Huagua Water Curtain Group, Lotus Sunday. Apart from her, who else would have the boldness to directly donate that pot of purple cherry? You think she planned it all? Only that eldest miss would dare do that. She must have used Ho Long-song's name to set up this organization. On the surface, this organization looks like a fan club for literature lovers. But in fact, it has an ulterior motive. But that eldest miss has an extraordinary background, and Jiudao can't openly take action against Huagua Water Curtain Group. So now we have no choice but to erase that Ho Lang-sang. To be honest, Holland felt that Wamaki Junson's words were not completely unreasonable, but he had the feeling that Wetsuji Junshan was underestimating Wang Ling too much. Don't worry, Mr. Holland, I've already issued a warning. In addition, in this year's closed-door National University Rankings competition, I will also plan to make our team lose. Yuki Junshan said. As long as Ho Long-sang loses the game, everything will fall apart. I think Mr. Mu is a little too confident. Holland frowned. I swear on the name of the Lord. Wamaki Junsan said, no. I guarantee it in the name of the Tao ancestor. This matter will definitely be resolved smoothly. In the name of the Tao ancestor? Although the Eastern cultivation world and the Western cultivation world have different beliefs. However, Tao ancestor seemed to be the greatest deity that the Eastern cultivation world believed in. Holland sighed, fine. Since Mr. Yuki is so confident, I'll have to go. In that case, I believe that Mr. Yuki will be able to handle this matter. The actual control of the 9 paths must be firmly in our hands. I understand, Mr. Holland. Wamaki Junshan nodded solemnly. Then the two of them cupped their fists and saluted each other. Wamaki Junshan. Kyushu. We will never yield. With the Tao ancestors' blessing, everything will be fine. Elsewhere, in the student union office, Leek Sasaki put the old and crumpled warning letter on the table. He had dug it out of the trash can. The main thing was to show the reinforcements he had asked for. And this reinforcements was none other than Zhou Xiang, the language teacher who had worked with Sparrow to repair Kyushu's secret room. Student Leek Sasaki. I'm afraid I won't be able to help you with this. Zhou Xiang looked at the warning letter in his hand and couldn't help sighing. Kyushu has always been xenophobic, and I'm a foreign teacher, so I don't have much say in this. The only reason I can get a high salary here is because I'm good at teaching. Leek Sasaki crossed his fingers and rested his chin on his hand. I didn't ask Mr. Zhou Xiang to help me get the Academic Affairs Office to revoke the warning letter. That's impossible. Zhou Xiang laughed when he heard this. So it's not about that. I know that Mr. Zhou has a hard time at the school, Leek Sasaki said. Zhou Xiang nodded and said, a warning letter is a very serious punishment. You're actually related to the Star Takers. But the Academic Affairs Office wouldn't dare to issue a warning letter like this. So I think this is most likely the school's board of directors. The board of directors is indeed troublesome. Sparrow frowned when she heard this. Things were starting to get troublesome. I remember that Kyushu is a school run by the Kyushu family. The board of directors should be able to handle this better. And my aunt is the sixth wife of the Kyushu family, Leek Sasaki said. You might not know this, but Kyushu and this school are actually the property of the third wife of the Kyushu family. Zhou Xiang said, because of her low education level, she has always wanted to be the principal. Back then, in order to pursue her, the old man of the Kyushu family helped her open up Kyushu. But the third wife has no experience in management, so she found some foreign management team to help manage it. Then over time, the actual controlling shares of Kyushu and the board of directors were controlled by those foreign teams. These words made Leek Sasaki fall into deep thought. It sounded like the situation was indeed much worse than it actually was. But to Leek Sasaki he had no way out. Even if it's a difficult bone to chew. But this is also the agreement between me, Homolang, and Rongchan. Kyushu and the Grey Church branch must exist. The grading system of Kyushu must also be abolished. Leek Sasaki said firmly. But it's useless for you to tell me this. Zhou Xiang spread his hands helplessly. At this moment, Leek Sasaki suddenly asked, Mr. Zhou can't speak in the academic affairs office, but what about the other teachers? Well, Zhou Xiang rubbed his chin. My popularity is actually not bad. There are many foreign teachers in Kyushu, and I actually have a good relationship with the foreign teachers. That's good. Leek Sasaki became excited. What's good? Zhou Xiang didn't understand. Join the church. Mr. Zhou, you can be our ambassador and pull these teachers into the Grey Church. This. Zhou Xiang was stunned. This matter. I'm afraid I can't do it. I have a condition that Mr. Zhou can't refuse. Leek Sasaki looked at Zhou Xiang seriously. Student Zhou Zi. His leg. Rongchan said she can cure it. Chapter 1560. But to everyone's surprise, news of Chive Sasaki's expulsion spread like wildfire within Kyushu and the school. Moreover, the trend was very wrong. Almost all the public opinion was on Chive Sasaki's side. As the president of the student council, who was enthusiastic, positive, had excellent grades, and was willing to provide quality service to the students, he had been threatened with expulsion by the school's academic affairs department just because he joined a literary exchange club. No matter how you looked at it, it seemed like the academic affairs department was the problem. The condemnation of this matter on the internet almost fermented overnight. What's the use of a school that doesn't respect its students, no matter how good his grades are? Ah, little Chive is so cute. When I graduated from Kyushu, I elected him to be the president of the student council. What right do you have to expel him? Aren't you cutting Chive? You don't understand. Kyushu is now a foreign school, and foreign cultivation educational institutions actually control it. The Kyugyu family actually has no control at all. Kyushu is rotten to the core, rotten to the core. That was the main point of the online discussion. When Kyushu and Wamaki Junzan saw this overwhelming tide of public opinion, they trembled with anger and wondered what was wrong with the world. It wasn't easy to create such a wave of condemnation overnight. Among them, there were two main factors that added fuel to the fire. On one hand, Lotus Sun and Chive Sasaki had planned to organize Grey Church members to help Chive Sasaki guide online public opinion. On the other hand, teacher Zhou Xiang, who had accepted the conditions, had set the pace among the teachers of Kyushu. With both the students and the teachers working in tandem, the matter quickly spread. Yes, Wamaki Junzan had miscalculated once again. He had underestimated the overall strength of the Grey Church. After the Rainbow Seven gang was taken down, the entire student council, as well as all the students who were dissatisfied with Kyushu and the grading system, had joined Kyushu and the Grey Church branches as long as they had excellent grades in language. Furthermore, the promotional video on Bilibili had added fuel to the fire. For a moment, many people were very interested in this student organization that had been established with the initial purpose of literary exchange. Sometimes, as long as public opinion was stirred up, it was very easy to follow the trend. There had always been a lot of people on the internet who would go along with the flow. Since everyone had agreed, then there was nothing wrong with agreeing with them. If everyone was cursing the same person or the same thing, then it wouldn't hurt to go along with the flow and stimulate Zuan's bloodline. On Saturday, December 19th, Sun Island's closed-door National High School Ranking Tournament had yet to officially begin. Jiudao in the student union's office, Leek Sasaki was extremely busy. Since early in the morning, Chiba Sasaki and Sparrow had not left the office. This was because more and more people were applying to join the Grey Church. There were students and teachers from other schools who handed over their report cards. For a moment, the Nine Paths and the Grey Church's branch were in an uproar again. In just a few days, the Nine Paths and the Grey Church's branch had grown from nothing to their current strength. This was something that Chiba Sasaki had never expected. Faced with the increasing number of Grey Church disciples, Leek Sasaki naturally felt the pressure mounting. In the last few days, sect leader Lotus Sun had been on his side giving him pointers. When the people from number 60 High went back next week, Leek Sasaki started to feel inexplicably agitated and anxious. In fact, Wang Ling had already anticipated this. After these days of comprehensive inspection of chives, Wang Ling felt that Leek Sasaki could be considered a person of good character. He didn't have anything to offer, so he enchanted something and had Lotus Sun give it to Chiba Sasaki in her name as a gift. So that day, Chiba Sasaki was in his office looking at the densely packed roster of believers on the computer, and his hair was about to fall. Lotus Sun brought Wang Ling's enchanted gift to the office. "This is Ryu-chan's for me?" Chiba Sasaki revealed an expression of disbelief. "You've worked hard these days." It was just a small token of appreciation. This was a memory pillowcase. It matched all pillows and was very elastic. Sleeping on it will help you clear your mind. While this material feels very comfortable, it must be very expensive, Chiba Sasaki exclaimed. "Actually, it's not that big of a deal. As long as you like it." Lotus Sun smiled awkwardly. Of course, she knew that the pillowcase was excellent. If Wang Ling hadn't personally asked her to deliver it, how would she have dared claim credit? This was something that classmate Wang Ling had personally enchanted. A casual touch was a priceless treasure. How many people in the world could only wish for it? Is Holang Sangsan going to the competition with the team soon? Yes, he's leaving right away. The competition starts at 3 o'clock this afternoon. I have to hurry up and get ready. Lotus Sun smiled. Okay, Ryu-chan. Do your best, Ryu-chan. I'll watch the live broadcast and give you gifts. Lotus Sun nodded, then said goodbye to Chiba Sasaki. Farewell, cult leader. Watching the girl's receding figure, Chiba Sasaki held the pillowcase in his hands and bowed to Lotus Sun with extreme excitement. For some reason, Lotus Sun felt like she was being possessed by Zhang Wuji, the cult master of the Ming cult. But their Grey cult was clearly just a literary exchange club. The closed-door competition for the National High School ranking on Sun Island was about to begin. Chiba Sasaki was busy roping in newcomers. Wang Ling was waiting to win the championship, while Ajwa and Kamiya Ryoko were also busily trying to treat Zhou Xiang's son's leg. This time, Zhou Xiang was leading the team of teachers in Kua High School, and the matter of Yumiya Junshan would probably be found out very soon. He had chosen this high-paying job to work abroad to pay for his son's leg treatment. Now that the matter of treating his son's leg had been settled, there was no harm in Zhou Xiang throwing caution to the wind. Besides, he had already put up with Yumiya Junshan for a long time. If it wasn't for his son's sake every time, Zhou Xiang felt that he might have fought Yumiya Junshan to the death. This is the place. Ajwa drove Kamiya Ryoko to Zhou Xiang's house. This was an old-fashioned cultivation residential building that had been around for a very long time. Although it was in Songhai City, it was very rare to see this kind of courtyard building in the city center. Kamiya Ryoko was wearing a black cloak and had changed her appearance. This was because Lotus Sun was now taking her place in the competition. In order to coordinate with Lotus Sun's performance, Kamiya Ryoko had simply asked for leave from school and hadn't gone to school in the last few days. What Kamiya Ryoko hadn't expected the most was, she had actually been living at Ajwa's house these days. Ajwa had indeed duped her into going over, saying that she had to fulfill her duty and responsibility as a bodyguard. although the man next to her hadn't done anything to her. But Kamiya Ryoko still had a very strange feeling in her heart. "Excuse me, is classmate Josie home?" In front of the courtyard, Ajwa knocked on the very old-fashioned riveted door. The red paint had already peeled off, and it looked old and wrinkled. Ajwa gently pushed the door, and found that the latch on the inside was loose and not completely locked. "Is anyone home?" he asked as he and Kamiya Ryoko entered the courtyard. Before coming to see Josie, Ajwa had in fact imagined a lot of scenarios. He had thought that he would see a very dejected teenager pushing a wheelchair out, dragging a frail body. In the end, not long after he said that, he heard a hearty shout from inside. "Coming, coming." On the eaves, the legless teenager was standing upside down. Using his arms instead of his feet to skillfully support his body, he leaped over the eaves and vaulted over the walls, then did a 360-degree turn in the air. Finally, with a bang, his head smashed into the ground. "Classmate Joe, it's not the new year yet. There's no need to be so formal." Ajwa gave an awkward but polite smile. "Does it hurt?" Kamiya Ryoko wanted to help him up. In the end, Josie scratched his head and propped himself up. It's fine. I'm a spirited little fellow." Ajwa, spirited little fellow. Apart from losing his legs, there was indeed something wrong with his mind. Chapter 1561. It was a very old-fashioned house, but after careful observation, Ajwa and Kamiya Ryoko found that the layout inside was very orderly. The flowers and grasses in the courtyard were growing very well. Each of them bloomed with their own fragrance, displaying their own beauty. It was obvious that they had been carefully taken care of on a daily basis. "Do you usually take care of these flowers and plants?" Looking at the blooming flowers, Ajwa couldn't help asking. "Yeah, it's also the mission my dad gave me before he went to Sun Island. He only has these hobbies. For my sake, he is so busy outside. I don't dare to raise his thing to death." "You and your father are so close." Ajwa sighed. "I thought you would hate your father." "Why should I hate my father?" Josie laughed. "It wasn't his fault that my leg was broken. It was just an accident. I've seen how he's been running around for my leg all these years." Saying this, Josie suddenly turned around to look at him. "That's right. I want to ask, are you the real Ajwa?" Ajwa was amused by this question. "Of course I'm the real Ajwa, otherwise what?" "No, nothing." Josie quickly turned his body around and continued to use his arms and palms to replace his legs, leading them to the front of the main hall. Before entering the door, Josie's body paused. "Wait for me, don't go in yet. Come in only when I tell you to." "You're a man. What other shameful things do you have?" Ajwa suddenly smiled again. Before coming here, he had actually already pretty much figured out Josie's situation. He also knew what it was that made Josie nervous and wanted to hide. Josie's face turned red and he couldn't help but take a few steps back. In fact, he was Ajwa's little fan, the kind who had admired him for a long time. Ever since he had lost his legs in an accident when he was very young, Ajwa's story had become his only hope. Now that the main body had appeared, he was naturally filled with emotions. Josie never dreamed that Ajwa would actually pay attention to him. "There's nothing to be embarrassed about. We're all men." Squatting down, Ajwa pinched Josie's dark face. Sure enough, the little fellow's face was as thick as he had imagined. Looking at this scene, Ryoko Kamiya felt a little upset. However, when he thought of Josie's current situation, he endured it all. At the same time, she felt childish for her own thoughts. Josie was a little fan of his, which made people feel that Josie was very cute. Most importantly, Josie was a man. Just now she actually felt annoyed over a boy. At this moment, Ryoko Kamiya had mixed feelings. She didn't think that she was jealous, but that she was sick. It was all her fault for being too close to Ajwa these days, which had led her astray. "Then come in, but don't laugh at me." After careful consideration, Josie felt that what Ajwa said made sense, so he boldly stepped aside. When he pushed open the door and entered the living room of the Zhou family mansion, he was instantly dumbfounded by the scene in front of him. The entire living room, including the right half of the wall, was filled with meticulously edited newspapers, all of which were related to him. Audiobook had thought that the oldest news would have started 6 years ago, when he had defeated the sky-swallowing toad. But the truth was that Josie had been paying attention to him for even longer than that. Josie had even paid attention to the news of Audiobook's second-class and third-class merits in the army. On the right side of the wall were many posters about Audiobook, including promotional posters, magazine covers, and posters of some of the movies he had starred in after he had become famous. Of course, the most outrageous thing wasn't what was on the left and right walls. It was the offering table at the very front of the main hall. The person on the offering table was none other than Audiobook's gold-plated cultivation hero commemorative figurine. 3 electronic candles were placed on the left and right sides of the figurine. In front of the figurine was a full spread of tributes, including peaches, bananas, and a whole fragrant braised pig's head. Looking at this scene, Ryoko Kamiya tried hard not to laugh out loud. Audiobook being worshipped at home was something she had never expected at all. "Are you happy? Touched?" Ryoko Kamiya really wanted to ask Audiobook this question now. As an outsider, she naturally only felt that it was funny. But Audiobook was different. To be honest, when he saw all this, his heart was deeply moved. A child who had lost both his legs at a very young age hadn't been defeated by such an ordeal, but had instead been able to live bravely and optimistically. In some sense, Audiobook felt that Josie possessed a kind of courage that ordinary children didn't have. Just like 6 years ago, he had flashed his spirit sword and charged to the front line, even though he knew he was no match for Audiobook. Audiobook thought he would laugh out loud, but the truth was that after seeing all this, apart from being moved, he felt even more respect. He took a few steps forward, picked up the incense sticks on the table, and lit them with spirit flames from his fingertips. Then he bowed to his figurine and firmly inserted the 3 incense sticks into the censer with boundless emotion in his heart. Ryoko Kamiya and Josie couldn't take it anymore at this scene. Both of them burst into laughter at the same time. Audiobook rolled his eyes and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "You're telling me not to laugh, but you're smiling so brightly yourself." Josie wiped his tears. "Well, Mr. Joie, you can't blame me. I respect you very much. But how can you worship yourself? This is too funny." Audiobook picked up Josie with one hand and straightened him out like he was a little chick, then directly carried him on his shoulder. Josie's face instantly turned red. "Mr. Joie, put me down." Audiobook neatly put the youngster on his shoulder down on a nearby chair. Then he and Ryoko each found a chair to sit down in. Josie still hadn't reacted to the fact that the person he had admired for a long time had suddenly carried him and placed him on a chair. He didn't lack concern, because he knew that in this world, his father was the person who cared about him the most. Jo Seong worked abroad all year round, but the hearts of father and son had always been connected. He worked hard to make himself obedient and strong, and even if he didn't have legs, he still lived a positive life. But the moment Audiobook picked him up just now, he suddenly felt that he had a very powerful backer behind him. "Mr. Joie." Josie's emotions were complicated, and at the same time very excited, and he didn't know what to say. At that moment, Audiobook stared at Josie and smiled. "Don't call me Mr. Joie, it's treating me like an outsider. You're a student of Sword God Academy, so I'm also your senior." "Senior?" "When I was studying at number 60 high, I was lucky enough to study at Sword God Academy for a while. But that was a long time ago," Audiobook said. "Just call me senior from now on." "I see." Josie's eyes lit up and his face was full of joy. "Okay, senior. Next, let's talk about your legs," Audiobook said. "My dad said that you can install the latest smart prosthetic legs on me. Is that true? Those things are very expensive. I heard that they cost 100 million each. Smart prosthetic legs worth hundreds of millions." Audiobook raised his eyebrows and sighed. "I think your father might have misunderstood something. Like I said, my dad is overthinking things. 100 million for a leg, how could it be mine?" Josie smiled bitterly. "No, classmate Joe, why don't you understand?" At that moment Audiobook said, "Smart prosthetic legs are good, but they actually aren't as good as real legs." "Don't tell me it's a real leg transplant." Josie was startled. But the doctor already said that my legs are past the best transplant period. A transplant is too low. I can also do this surgery. If you want a transplant, I can help you become ergot. It's fine even if you have a few more legs. What I'm talking to you about now isn't prosthetic legs, let alone a so-called transplant. At that moment, Audiobook looked up at the youngster in front of him with a serious expression on his face. I'm talking about growing your legs back. Do you see the flowers and plants in your yard? This broken leg can also be planted. Chapter 1562. Replanting a broken leg. This was an extremely brilliant technique. Of course, this wasn't a technique that cultivators on Earth currently possessed. At the moment, the replanting technique on Earth still used substitute materials, such as spirit lotus roots. But this was for cultivators whose bodies had been severely damaged. They used spirit lotus roots to create a fake body, and then grafted a soul into it. This was an extremely brilliant surgery, but because the medical costs were particularly high, it wasn't something that ordinary cultivators could afford. This was a project for the rich. The advantages and disadvantages of a lotus root body were very obvious. Because it was too brittle, people who had a lotus root body were especially vulnerable to damage, and had to avoid a lot of strenuous exercise. Even flying on a sword was risky, because lotus root people were very light, and if they flew too fast, they could easily flip over. If even flying a sword was a problem, there was no need to talk about mass movement. So in the final analysis, whether it was substitute materials or real human tissue transplanted from someone else's body, it was still far less useful than the original flesh on the body. At the cultivation level on Earth, leg planting technology still wasn't mature enough, but on Divine Tao Star, it was already very mature. Ever since Wang Ling had intimidated the leaders of Divine Tao Star's major families, the 10 major families of Divine Tao Star had been too eager to curry favor with them. Wang Zhen and Lu Qingyi, this young couple, had already become envoys for communication between Battle Sect and Divine Tao Star. Wang Ling had only just set out the task, but Wang Zhen and Lu Qingyi had already gotten their hands on the leg planting method. It actually wasn't too different from basic planting. They just needed to make a hole in the broken part, stuff the seed in, and finally sew it back together. All that was left was to bask the leg in the sun every day and wait for it to grow back. Of course, in order to ensure that the broken leg could grow back smoothly, the body also needed to be nourished. This process was equivalent to fertilizing, but in fact, there was no need to soak the broken part in fertilizer. That would be too heavy a taste. The leg just needed to keep eating to replenish its nutrients. After seeing Zhou Zi's condition this time, Audiobook had actually felt very gratified. He had been more worried that the young man would have a heavy psychological burden. Now that he saw Zhou Zi's cheerful and optimistic appearance, this concern was clearly dispelled. On the other hand, he also had to observe Zhou Zi's specific injuries. The elbow's leg was exactly a third of the thigh. In other words, a part of the thigh was still there, and not the lower half of the body had completely disappeared. Otherwise, he would have to plant the middle leg, which would be more troublesome. Your condition is fine. I think that as long as you take good care of yourself, you'll definitely be able to grow 2 long legs based on your head-to-body ratio, Audiobook said as he cupped his chin. Will it really work? Zhou Zi was skeptical. You have to be confident, student Zhou. Audiobook encouraged her. The implantation surgery was actually very fast. However, in order to ensure that Zhou Zi's body's nutrition could be supplemented and taken care of during the implantation period, Zhou Zi had to be carefully taken care of. Audiobook decided to bring Zhou Zi home to help him recuperate. This was the task Wang Ling had given him, and as his disciple, he had to complete it. Most importantly, although Zhou Zi was already 16 years old, he had a baby face and looked like a child. Considering the age difference, Audiobook actually felt like an old father when he made this decision. Senior Zhou wants me to go to Senior's house? After learning of Audiobook's decision, Zhou Zi looked very surprised. But what about the flowers and plants in my courtyard? I have a friend called Immortal Toya. He'll be the one to carry out the planting operation this time, and his 2 disciples will take care of your flowers and plants. Audiobook smiled. His 2 disciples usually take care of the flowers on an entire island. The few pots in your courtyard are too easy for them. But won't this be too troublesome? Zhou Zi frowned. He was as clear as a mirror in his heart. He was well aware that what he was doing would cause Audra a lot of trouble. Although Zhou Zi had a broken leg, he was still very good at socializing because of his cheerful personality. Zhou Zi had already learned to read people's expressions at a very young age. The reason he was apprehensive wasn't just because he didn't want to trouble Audra. More importantly, he felt that the girl behind Audra right now would swallow him whole. After pondering for a long while, Zhou Zi looked up at Audra and changed the way he addressed him. Brother Zhua. That's good, it sounds more intimate than senior. Audra nodded in satisfaction. He crouched down and looked patiently at the youngster in front of him. Whatever you think, you can tell me. I know Brother Zhua is doing this for my own good, but it's really inconvenient for me to go over. Zhou Zi buried his head, as if he had been holding it in for a long time. In the end, he suddenly raised his head and summoned up his courage to say, because I don't want to be a third wheel. Third wheel? Sister-in-law will mind if I go over and live there, right? Zhou Zi looked at Audra. After he said this, Audra burst out laughing on the spot. In contrast, Ryoko Kamiya, who was behind him, clearly hadn't expected Zhou Zi to suddenly bring this up, and she stamped her foot shyly on the spot. Who's your sister-in-law? Then, she quickly left the living room with a red face. Audra was overjoyed. The more he looked at Zhou Zi, the more he liked him. This young man had a bright future ahead of him. He knew how to read people's expressions. But there was one thing he didn't quite understand, so he asked, I don't think I've ever told you that she's your sister-in-law, right? Why would you think that? Ah. So she isn't. It seems I was rude. I'm sorry, Brother Zhua. Zhou Zi scratched the back of his head in embarrassment. I'm actually very sensitive to smell. I actually sensed it the moment you walked in. The shampoo and body wash you use all smell the same. This means that you two are living together. Then if she's living together, she could be my little sister, right? Audra laughed. No. It can't be your little sister. Sister-in-law clearly looks at Brother Zhua differently. What little sister would get jealous? Zhou Zi said in a low voice. You think she's jealous? A little. Zhou Zi nodded. But is she sister-in-law or not? Audra rubbed Zhou Zi's head and smiled coldly. Don't worry, she will be soon. As for you, your first task now is to go back with me and plant legs. But there are no buts. There are no paths in this world, but once you have legs, you'll have a path. And once you have a path and legs, you'll be able to widen your path. Audra's logic was so strong that Zhou Zi couldn't refute it. Chapter 1563. On the way back, Kimiya Ryoko sat in the front passenger seat and looked at the excited Zhou Zi through the rearview mirror from time to time. She was keenly aware that Zhou Zi's eyes had been glued to Audra ever since he got in the car. Didn't you always think the front passenger seat wasn't spacious enough? Why are you sitting next to me? Not long after they set off, Audra suddenly laughed. He looked straight ahead and only glanced out of the corner of his eye at the girl next to him, who had her arms crossed and her head slightly raised like a black swan. I'll sit wherever I want, humph. Kimiya Ryoko turned to look out the window, but her eyes never left Zhou Zi in the back seat through the reflection in the window, as if she was deep in thought. To be honest, she didn't dislike Zhou Zi. Even after meeting Zhou Zi for the first time, he felt great admiration for Zhou Zi's courage to smile at life. But for some reason, she felt uncomfortable when she saw Zhou Zi's gaze on Audra. She was very clear that that gaze was definitely not a gaze of love, but a pure admiration for her idol. But no matter how much she persuaded herself, Kimiya Ryoko still felt as if her heart was blocked, and she couldn't calm down. Ever since she had hired Audra as a bodyguard, she found that she had become more and more abnormal. With both hands on the steering wheel, Audra stared at the sulking girl next to him, and couldn't help laughing in his heart. Ryoko was too cute. This girl couldn't hide her temper. She thought she was very mature, but in fact, her inner thoughts were written all over her face. Audra had in fact already decided on the idea of bringing Zhou Zi back. On one hand, it was to better complete his task, And on the other hand, it was to provoke Kimiya Ryoko. He had already gotten a good grasp of the girl's temper recently. If Josie had been a girl, she would probably have already started acting weird. It was precisely because Josie was a boy, and a disabled one at that this girl couldn't say a word now. Even if she was a little jealous, she could still sulk on her own. She was actually jealous of a boy, and a disabled one at that. For Kimiya Ryoko, it was too unbecoming of her to say this out loud. I'll cook some home cooking tonight. After driving for a while, Audra gripped the steering wheel and tried to break the deadlock in the car. Josie knew how to read people's expressions, and he also knew that Ryoko Kamiya was actually unhappy. However, given the current situation, he didn't dare to say anything. Obediently keeping his mouth shut was the best choice. There was no way Audra would let Josie be embarrassed alone. It was his duty to lighten the mood. Z, do you have any favorite dishes? Audra asked. I'm not a picky eater. I'll just eat with big brother and sister-in-law. Josie was a little embarrassed. After he said this, he instinctively wanted to see Kimiya Ryoko's reaction, but strangely, the girl in the passenger seat didn't move at all. Previously, when the girl was at his house, she had tried her best to deny this relationship. In the end, there was a feeling of tacit agreement. Out of the corner of his eye, Audra glanced at the girl, who looked like she had already fallen asleep, and curled his lips. Your sister-in-law is asleep. As soon as she said that, Ryoko's lips twitched. Oh, sister-in-law has fallen asleep. Josie's expression of sudden realization was extremely exaggerated. He couldn't help snickering in his heart. This Josie was smarter than he had imagined. He had actually already guessed that Ryoko was faking her sleep. But he didn't directly expose him, and at Audra's hint with his eyes, continued to cooperate with the rest of the performance. Z, just tell me what you want to eat. In any case, your sister-in-law is asleep and won't mind, Audra said in a low voice. Josie understood and hurriedly lowered his voice as well. The current situation between the two of them really looked like they were taking care of the sleeping Kimiya Ryoko. So they lowered their voices. In fact, their voices weren't too low. There wasn't much space in the car, so Ryoko could still hear them clearly. Then what does sister-in-law usually like to eat? Your sister-in-law is afraid of getting fat and likes to eat bland food. But she's actually afraid that if she eats too bland, she won't be able to get enough nutrition. Audra looked at Ryoko's flat mouse pad and said, actually her favorite dishes are spicy chicken and duck blood curd. I see. Josie smiled, his eyes full of envy. Ah, that's great. Z, have you ever had a girlfriend? Audra asked. I'm a disabled person. How could anyone like me? Josie shrugged helplessly. The teachers and classmates at school take good care of me, at least on the surface. But there are always discussions in private. What do they say about you? They say how a disabled person like me could get into Sword God Academy. It's probably something along those lines. You're not angry. There's nothing to be angry about. Josie said, sometimes a lot of people don't want to hear your excuses. They just want to enjoy the pleasure of arguing with you. That makes sense. Audra was secretly surprised by Josie's maturity. Your sister-in-law also often argues with me at home. You two are different. Husband and wife quarrel at the head of the bed and reconcile at the end. The more you argue, the better your relationship, Josie said. As he spoke, he was observing Ryoko's expression the whole time. In this short conversation, he kept calling her sister-in-law, and the corners of Ryoko's mouth and eyes twitched nonstop as he kept calling her sister-in-law. Even Josie started to become curious about how much longer Ryoko could hang on. But as the saying went, you could never wake up a person who was pretending to be asleep. As long as Ryoko didn't want to wake up, it wouldn't matter how excessive their next topic was. If she woke up and retorted now, how awkward would that be? Audra was clearly aware of this, and he started to step on the accelerator and abruptly increased the speed. Z, he suddenly said at that moment. Brother Joie, what is it? Josie understood and asked cooperatively. The two of them immediately echoed each other and began to sing the same tune. I was just thinking, if I had married a little earlier, would my son be about the same age as you? Uft. Josie couldn't help laughing on the spot. Brother Zhuo wants to be my father? Godfather? Godfather or whatever, that's too much. I think I can be your Shifu. A teacher for a day is a father for life. Then I'll be your son from now on? If you were my son, then the one next to you wouldn't be your sister-in-law right now. We're now a standard family of 3 in this car. A family of 3. I get it. Josie bowed on the spot to Ryoko in the front passenger seat. Greetings, esteemed mother. At that moment, Ryoko suddenly opened her eyes and clenched her 2 little fists tightly as she shouted, "Who's your esteemed mother?" Her. I can't take it anymore. What the hell is this? The more she said, the more outrageous it became. Chapter 1564. Yes, Shifu, I've brought classmate Z back. He's a very obedient and sensible child. He and I get along very well. Also, Immortal Toya will personally visit him tomorrow for the operation. In short, Shifu, please rest assured about Z's situation. All the people who were monitoring classmate Joe's family have been arrested, and none of them have been released. Battlesex Cohen has already mobilized his connections in Mishio Nation to take action against the foreign companies that are interfering with the 9 paths. I believe we'll have results in a few days. Also, Shifu, there's one more thing. I want to. Forget it, Shifu. Go do what you need to do. When Shifu comes back to China, I'll personally pay him a visit. Josie had never thought that there would come a day when he would. He could go live in Ajua's house for a while. In this world, there were 2 men he respected the most. The first person he worshipped was his father, and the second was Ajua. The former was his life support, and the latter was his spiritual pillar. In the car earlier, he and Ajua had worked together seamlessly and tacitly. For a moment, Josie really felt like Ajua's disciple. But Josie was also well aware. Being Ajua's disciple might be an extravagant hope. If he was joking, if he was serious, he would lose. After returning to the apartment, Ajua could clearly sense that Josie's mood seemed to be a little gloomier than before. He knew what on earth was going on in the little guy's head. In fact, what they had said in the car just now hadn't all been a joke. Ajua also had his own plans. But taking in a disciple was, after all, a big deal. There was no way he would accept it just like that. Thus, in the end, Wang Ling had to agree to it. Ajua was in the kitchen chopping vegetables around his apron. At that moment, he suddenly poked his head out and took the initiative to talk to Josie. Z, can you come over and help me? Of course. Josie, who had been scared out of his wits, readily agreed. Do you know how to cut vegetables? Ajua moved a chair so that Josie could stand steadily on it. Yes. Josie nodded. Even if he had lost both his legs, he was still very capable of taking care of himself. When Josie was alone at home, he usually cooked himself. Shredded or diced? Shred the cucumber and dice the carrots. Mince the chili over there, and help me peel the potatoes. All right. Young man, you're quite capable, Ajua praised him. Josie blushed. He felt that there was no hope for him. Just a simple compliment was enough to make him feel extremely happy. Kyuya Ryoko hugged her pillow and looked in the direction of the kitchen. He looked at Josie with hostility. In the car earlier, this little guy and Ajua had joined forces to tease her. She would remember this. Kamiya Ryoko pressed the remote control. On the surface, she pretended to be fine, but she was very annoyed in her heart. He didn't pay attention to any of the programs. When the program switched to the TV drama channel, a familiar line came from the channel. You only lost your legs, but she lost her love. Kamiya Ryoko was speechless. Josie. Ajua. At the same time, the closed-door competition between the 9 paths and the national high school students was about to begin. The prize for first place was 1 million Sun Island dollars. Converted into Huaxio's currency, it was equivalent to more than 60,000 at the exchange rate. This prize might not seem like much to other people, but it was especially important to Wang Ling. The contestants who had been selected as part of the school delegations for this competition wouldn't be too bad in terms of overall strength and family conditions. Apart from Wang Ling, almost no one was aiming for the prize money. Personal honor, and the school's honor were more important. The Nine Paths and the Office of Academic Affairs, Yuki Junshan, were worried about the public opinion that had erupted today. He vaguely had a suspect in his heart. He knew who was playing tricks behind the scenes. Zhou Xiang. After thinking it over, Yuki Junshan could only think of this person. Whoever started the trouble had to end it. If he wanted to reverse public opinion, he would probably have to get Zhou Xiang to make a concession and speak up for the Office of Academic Affairs. Yuki Junshan had in fact already prepared for this. When the phone rang, Yuki Junshan was finally waiting for the signal to act. Is everything ready? Very good. Then please invite teacher Zhou Xiang to my office. It's time to talk to him. Zhou Xiang actually hadn't expected Yuki Junshan to find him so quickly. But this time, his confidence was different. In the past, his biggest worry had been his son. Now Zhou Zi's problem had been completely solved. He had nothing to be afraid of. With eldest Miss Sun's help, Yuki Junshan would probably never have dreamed of the resources his son would enjoy in the future. And now, Zhou Xiang had Huaguo Water Curtain Group and Battle Sect working together to support him. One was a large, world-renowned elixir conglomerate, while the other was a globally recognized super sect that had risen to prominence in recent years and had official backing. When he returned to the country this time, he would also receive a special invitation from the War Sect to teach language at the War Sect. The salary and benefits would be 20 times higher than what Nine Paths and the Nine Paths were offering. Not only that, the people in charge of the Battle Sect also promised that they would provide him with a mountain. In the future, apart from teaching him language, they would also pass on knowledge of cultivation history. This was a course specially designed for children who had no talent, but were determined to contribute to the human cultivation cause. It wasn't just Battle Sect. Other schools actually had similar courses and teachers who specialized in this area. Cultivation wasn't just about improving one's level and knowing how to use all kinds of fancy spells and magical equipment. It was also very important to pass on the culture and history of the cultivation sect. Among modern cultivators, as long as they had some achievements in cultivation history and culture, even if they had low or no cultivation level, they would be treated just as well. The treatment they received was no less than that of cultivators with higher levels. Battle Sect was a sect that had blossomed in all aspects. Chinese and history courses had long been in the process of preparation, but Zhou Xiang's appearance just happened to speed up the process. Of course, it wasn't just because they wanted Zhou Xiang to make a decision as soon as possible. It was because Zhou Xiang himself was indeed a talent worthy of these resources. Zhou Xiang was clearly a lot more confident when he came to Yuki Junshan's office again. He no longer had to bow and scrape like those lowly animals who had to endure Yuki Junshan's disdainful looks. After entering the office, he sat on the sofa and crossed his legs, looking completely fearless. Yuki Junshan and Holland, the board member of the foreign corporation next to him, were both shocked by this action. Yuki Junshan sneered. "Mr. Zhou, are you planning to give up now?" He hadn't asked anything, but Zhou Xiang was acting like this in front of him. Yuki Junshan's suspicions were finally answered. "You've privately spread a religion that doesn't conform to the school's culture. You're already suspected of illegally spreading religion. According to the laws of this country, you can be detained." Yuki Junshan threatened. Religion? Zhou Xiang couldn't help but laugh. The Gray Sect. Apart from the word sect, it's written the same way as a religion. Which part of it has anything to do with religion? It's just a student literary club. Do you think your sweet words will work? Zhou Xiang. Yuki Junshan snorted. If you're detained for breaking the law, you'll also be fired by the school. What will happen to your disabled son if you lose your income? Have you ever thought about that? So you're threatening me with my son. At this moment, Zhou Xiang could only sigh at his decisiveness back then. Fortunately, Leek Sasaki had found him ahead of time and expressed his willingness to cooperate with Zhanzong and Huaguo Water Curtain Group. Otherwise, he really would be pinned down by others like this. His son was his lifeline. But now his biggest weakness had been completely dealt with. Zhou Xiang said, "Yuki Junshan, you really are a sinister villain." My son often tells me that someone is watching him when he sleeps at night. They should be the people you sent, right? Yuki Junshan laughed. Since you know what I'm up to, I really don't know why you're still pretending to be tough. Mr. Zhou Xiang, you can't leave the 9 paths and their treatment. Then you might as well make another call and ask if the people you sent to watch him are still there. Zhou Xiang spread his hands indifferently. Yuki Junshan frowned slightly. He thought of Zhou Xiang's uncharacteristically tough behavior today and began to worry about the situation over there. It can't be, Yuki Junshan thought worriedly. He had clearly spoken to the informant over there just now, and the informant had said that the situation was under control. At this moment, with a skeptical look, Yuki Junsen called back again. The person who answered the phone was none other than Audiobook. Hello, Mr. Yuki Junshan. Is there anything else? The situation is under control. Hearing this, Yuki Junshan realized that the person who answered the phone didn't have the right accent. I don't recognize your voice. I'm new here, Audiobook replied as he cooked. While cooking, Audiobook replied, I was the one who called you just now. So, the situation has been resolved? Yes, Mr. Yuki, it's been resolved. Then why did Zhou Xiang? But your people were dealt with. My wife is waiting for me to cook. Don't bother me if there's nothing important. Audiobook smiled. Oh, by the way, the people you sent are now locked up in Shanghai First Prison. If you don't believe me, give them a call and ask yourself. They probably won't be out for espionage for more than 10 years. The call was cut off. Yuki Junshan hung up with an incredulous expression. Damn it. What on earth had Zhou Xiang done? Who's backing you up? Yuki Junshan was so angry that he was shaking. The feeling of being toyed with made him furious. He glared at Zhou Xiang with hatred in his eyes. Do you think that even if you manage to protect your son, I will not be able to protect him? Do you think you can leave Sun Island alive? What, Zhu Dao Peace's dean's office is going to do something to me, a teacher of the people? Zhou Xiang got up with a teasing expression on his face. He dusted off his pants and walked straight out the door. If you want to do something to me, go ahead. But I advise teacher Yuki Junshan to stop as soon as possible. Don't ask for trouble. How can you live without Zhu Dao Peace? Live? Tui. Zhou Xiang raised his eyebrows. His throat trembled as he spat on the floor of the dean's office. I've already sent my resignation letter to the dean's office and the headmaster's office. You make me sick. Just you wait, Zhou Xiang. I won't let you off easy. Yuki Junshan stamped his foot in exasperation. Dongfu City Football Stadium. This time, the closed-door competition for the ranking of high school students from 100 high schools on Sun Island would be held here. All the delegations had their own waiting rooms. Before the start of the competition, Wang Ming had reconfirmed Wang Ling's unused talismans. He still had 66 functioning talismans, so he judged that it shouldn't be a problem for him to survive the competition. If you feel something's wrong, just run. Don't worry about anything else, got it? I'll use my brainwaves to erase the memories of everyone here. Wang Ming told Wang Ling. He realized that ever since Wang Ming and Jai Yin had gotten together, this guy's brainwaves had become more and more versatile. But to be honest, after confirming their relationship, Wang Ming's brainwaves had indeed become a lot stronger. Wang Ling guessed that this was probably the result of a man in love who was constantly stimulated by his adrenal glands and male hormones. Coupled with his brainwaves during the day and at night, this idiot brother of his had become even stronger than before. Why do you look even more nervous than Ling? Jai Yin couldn't help laughing. They weren't in public now, so it was better for her to maintain her original appearance. The main reason was that her earlier disguise as Lotus Sun had been too unnatural, and could almost be said to be full of loopholes. So to be on the safe side, Jai Yin and Lotus Sun had discussed that in private. Jai Yin would still be herself to adjust her mentality. If it was Lotus Sun's turn to appear, Jai Yin could use a magic treasure to complete her disguise in one click. Of course I'm nervous. The main thing is that I'm afraid Ling won't know what to do. What if he accidentally uses 100 million points of power and erases Sun Island from the satellite map? Are you exaggerating? I can't factor. I want you to recharge my batteries. Wang Ming took a deep breath. put his arm around Jia Yin's waist, and rested his head on her chest. And this was the legendary brainwave man-body Satoshi. On the side, Lotus Sun, who was disguised as Ryoko Kamiya, was envious. At that moment, Leek Sasaki pushed open the door, and came in with the wild group Fong, Peacock and Hattori Chuanja, who had gone out to gather information. "Everyone, are you ready?" Leek Sasaki said. "We've just drawn lots and decided on the groups. There will be a total of 500 people from the 100 delegations participating in the competition this time. Half of them will be eliminated in the first round. According to the order, Langsang's match will start first. Their opponent is Kuwata High School's Kanzuya Sakai." "This surname sounds a little familiar?" Lotus Sun frowned slightly. "That's right. This Kanzuya Sakai is actually the younger brother of the sucker, who was forced to give away that purple cherry blossom earlier." Leek Sasaki couldn't help laughing. The key is that Kanzuya Sakai also joined the Nine Paths and the Grey Sect branch in the afternoon. Wang Ling. Chapter 1565. Before the start of the tournament, Sakai Kanzuya had been conflicted about whether to join the Grey Church or not. His academic performance had always been very good, and he had never made any mistakes. He was a child who made his parents very worry-free. As the second child in the family, the young Kanzuya Sakai had always been doted on by the head of the Sakai family, Akira Sakai. He was a typical other people's child, growing up surrounded by all kinds of praises. However, just over 10 hours ago, everything seemed to have been broken by Huagwa Water Curtain Group's contract. His big brother Sakai Toyotani, who loved to cause trouble, suddenly received his father's praise and favor. This made Sakai Kanzuya upset from the beginning to the end. He knew Sakai Toyotani's intellect very well. With his brother's intellect, it was impossible for him to use that pot of purple cherry to win the attention of the young miss of Huagwa Water Curtain Group. So the question was, who gave his big brother the idea? Sakai Kanzuya carefully analyzed the changes in his big brother, and finally came to a conclusion. Everything was related to his big brother joining the Grey Church. It was clearly just a literary exchange organization, but it had such a great charm that it could cause a person's IQ to undergo a huge change. This forced Sakai Kanzuya to re-evaluate the importance of the Grey Church. Since there were benefits to joining the Grey Church, he couldn't fall behind. Fortunately, his academic results were excellent. Just like that, Sakai Kanzuya joined the Nine Paths and the Grey Church's branch with outstanding results. But what Sakai didn't expect was that in today's match, the first person he drew was the legendary Langsang. Now, the situation was very clear. Since as long as he followed the wishes of that young prodigal son, he would be able to win the favor of that young miss. He had to lose the next round. Not only did he have to lose, he had to lose beautifully. He lost so badly that no one would be able to tell that he was rigging the match. After this incident with Sakai Toyoto, Sakai Kazuo finally understood. The school's honor was *T. He had received so many awards that he could use them as wallpaper. In the end, it still couldn't compare to Sakai Toyoto's luck and the huge family benefits. "Father, watch carefully. Isn't it just being a bootlicker? I can do it too." Before going on stage, Kanzuya Sakai's mood was extremely complicated, but he was already prepared to lose to Wang Ling. As the saying goes, the certificate was valuable, but the honor was even more valuable. If he chose the path of a bootlicker, he could abandon both of them. Finally, it was time for the match between Wang Ling and Kanzuya Sakai. Due to the closed-door nature of the competition, the entire arena was prohibited from recording. No one could see what was happening inside. But Wang Ming could use his brainwaves to remotely sense the images inside, and project them into the minds of Lotus Sun, Jia-in, Chive Sasaki and the others. Take it easy. Jia-in was actually very worried about Wang Ming's condition. The main reason was that Wang Ming had been very excited these last few days, and he was worried that Wang Ming's brain would overheat from working too fast. In the end, Wang Ming's expression was a lot calmer than he had imagined. "Don't worry about me. I feel like my brain has improved a lot recently." Wang Ming smiled. After all, now that he had a girlfriend, He would have a human seat beside him that could charge his brainwaves for 5 minutes and talk for 2 hours. It was enough to make him feel refreshed. His first opponent was a member of the Grey Sect. This was actually good news. As long as Sakai Kazuya wasn't stupid, he wouldn't risk his life. It would actually be more advantageous for Wang Ling if he threw the match, because it would save him a lot of one-off talismans and allow him to advance to the next round. But in Chive Sasaki's view, throwing the match was still technically difficult. Although it was a closed-door competition, the referee ball wasn't a fool. In regular matches, the referee ball had a built-in anti-match fixing function, which could determine whether two people were engaged in a fixed match based on the details of the fight, and thus carry out an intelligent assessment. If it was judged to be fixed, then both sides would be disqualified from the competition. In other words, if Sakai Kazuya sincerely wanted to lose, he would have to trick the referee ball. Thus, Chive Sasaki was actually a little worried deep down. Brother Heir, if this Sakai Kazuya doesn't act well, I'm afraid Holang Sang will be implicated. Don't worry, it won't be a problem. Wang Ming smiled as usual. In fact, Wang Ming had already studied the referee ball's method of determining whether a match was fixed. Before the start of each match, the referee ball would automatically measure the strength of both sides through the system, and then make a decision based on the results of the match as a whole. Generally speaking, if the side with the higher number at the start lost to the side with the lower number, there was a 70% chance that the match was fixed. Thus, the mechanism for determining whether a match was fixed was actually based on the initial number. Here, Wang Ling wanted to win and Sakai Kazuya wanted to lose. And even with the multiple seals, Wang Ling's initial number was more than 1 trillion points higher than Sakai Kazuya's. Thus, the basic judgment of a match being fixed wasn't valid from the start. He just needed to follow the normal procedure. At least, that was what Wang Ling thought when he officially met Sakai Kazuya. Wang Ling and Sakai Kazuya faced each other in a completely enclosed independent arena. Sakai Kazuya looked very nervous, and the sweat on his cheeks had been rolling down continuously since the start of the match, dripping to the ground without a break. In the 200 square meter room, there were 6 referee balls floating in the air, monitoring the match from all angles. 6 balls. Sakai Kazuya was well aware of this. If he wanted to fix the match, he would have to trick these 6 referee balls. The 6 referee balls in the air gradually unfurled intertwining lines of spirit power. Wang Ling and Sakai Kazuya were well aware of this. The basic combat strength judgment was about to begin. This was the key to determining whether or not a match was fixed. Wang Ling looked at the air indifferently as he waited for the referee balls to make their judgment. On the other side, Sakai Kazuya looked a little flustered. He didn't know what Wang Ling's combat strength was. Thus he didn't dare act rashly. Furthermore, his main worry was, if his combat strength was higher than Wang Ling's. If he lost the match, it was very likely that it would be judged as a match being fixed, and he would be eliminated along with this young man in front of him. He would think of the many rumors about Wang Ling as a mascot. Sakai Kazuya began to fear more and more that his initial value might really be higher than Wang Ling's. He absolutely couldn't let that happen. He was Sakai Kazuya. He had to carry the young man to the finals. And so, after making up his mind before the judgment light hit him, Sakai Kazuya slapped himself hard on the forehead. Pooh! A large mouthful of blood gushed out of Sakai Kazuya's mouth like an exaggerated fountain. For Sakai Kazuya, this was a helpless move. Because he was worried that his initial value would be higher than Wang Ling's, he could only use this method to weaken himself by hurting himself. But Wang Ling felt this move. There was no need. Chapter 1566. In the first round, Wang Ling won effortlessly. The main reason was that Sakai Kazuya was too ruthless. She directly hit Tenko with her palm, and after causing damage, she held on until the start of the match. Wang Ling didn't even move. Sakai Kazuo bled from his 7 orifices, and directly fell to the ground with a happy expression on his face. But this kind of self-mutilation to please Lotus Sun didn't suit her expectations. After Kazuya Sakai was carried away, Lotus Sun immediately split off Mysterious C's sword chi to chase after him and treat him. He's working so hard, Rongrong. Aren't you going to help him? Wang Ming laughed in the independent mental chat space. If everyone used this method, then this shortcut would be too easy. Lotus Sun's expression was also very helpless. So to sum up, in the end, Kanzuya Sakai paid the wrong price. In the office of the Kyushu and the dean's office, Yuki Kuen-san projected the footage of the closed-door competition into the office. This was a technique that used certain technical means to steal the image captured by the referee's ball into an image magic treasure, and then project it. Uetsuji Junshan hoped that Wang Ling would lose, so naturally everyone was watching Wang Ling's fight. Sakai Kanzuya from Kawada High School lost just like that. On the side, Holland from the foreign capital looked very ugly. He had seen Wang Ling's and Kanzuya Alcohol's data on paper, and Kanzuya Sakai's attributes were superior to Wang Ling's in all aspects. If even Sakai and Kanzuya were to lose, then Holland couldn't think of any other possibility besides going easy on them. I didn't expect Sakai Kanzuya to be so ruthless. The Grey Church really can't be underestimated. Yuki Kuniyama was also shocked by Kanzuya Sakai's self-destructive move to weaken himself before the start of the match. What was it that made Sakai Kanzuya go to this extent? Wamaki Junsan and Holland were puzzled by this matter. Can you analyze Holengsang's combat strength? Holland asked. I'm still thinking of a way. Wamaki Junshan said. Stealing the ball from the referee is already a very dangerous operation. It will take some time to steal the combat power data. Mr. Holland. Who is this Holengsang's next opponent? He's from Kawada High School. His name is Eiki Yonakura. But don't worry, Mr. Holland, because I've arranged for this person. Yuki Junsen laughed sinisterly. To deal with a hothead like that, it's not enough to defeat him in a match. Isn't this a little too boring? I want him to lose all standing and reputation. Akio Yonakura? I think I've heard this name before. This is the person on the list of Mishio elite students I provided to the Ministry of Foreign Investment. This student intends to further his studies in Mishio Nation. However, his family conditions are rather poor, so he doesn't have the qualifications to go. Yuki Junshan said. So, I proposed to him the condition of a recommendation. They wanted him to lose the match on purpose. In that case, the referee would be able to determine that it was a rigged match and eliminate him, and that Holengsang. I see. Holland nodded. But such a move would be a self-destructive move. Student Mikura's reputation will also be affected. Not at all. Yuki Junshan shook his head and said, when he goes abroad to study, he'll have a new identity. I promise to give student Mikura Weiming clean data without any foundation so that he can start a new life. Thus, the record of a rigged match won't affect him at all. Hearing this, Holland heaved a long sigh of relief. The preparations this time did sound very thorough, without the slightest mistake or oversight. After all, this was how a rigged match was determined. If one side cheated, both sides would be eliminated together. As long as they were eliminated together, no matter which side had ulterior motives, they would be labeled as untrustworthy. Spectators often didn't care about the truth of the matter. It was fine as long as there was public opinion to guide them. Then most people's habitual thinking would make them rush to the front like hungry wolves, bite down hard on their prey, and gorge themselves on it. Understanding the truth was too tiring. Only happiness mattered. In some sense, Yuki Junshan was indeed a very cunning opponent. He had a unique vision, and had pinpointed Wang Ling as the key to everything. As long as he could topple Wang Ling, whatever gray sect or reinforcements, they would all be defeated like a landslide. No matter what kind of achievements you had previously or how many people liked you, as long as you did one thing wrong, it would be magnified by public opinion. It wouldn't matter even if you were God, because that was the reality. But what Holland and Yuki Junshan didn't expect was, their seemingly flawless plan for a rigged match had a very important key. And that was, the referee's initial assessment of Wang Ling's fighting strength had to be lower than that Mikura Weiming, but they didn't know. This was a rigged match that could never be possible. Elsewhere in Huaxiu Nation's Songhai City staff apartment, with Zhou Ziyi's help, Ajwa elegantly prepared a table full of fragrant home-cooked dishes. As he ate, he switched the TV to a specific satellite channel. The TV was showing a live broadcast of Wang Ling's closed-door match. This image had been projected by Wang Ming's brainwaves to the Battlesec satellite in space. A password was needed to access the channel. Thus, only a few core members of the Battlesec knew how to get in. Isn't that classmate Wang Ling? Jamiya Ryoko frowned. The moment she saw Wang Ling, she suddenly felt that the youngster's face looked a little familiar. And she didn't know why. She suddenly felt that Audiobook seemed to be paying special attention to Wang Ling himself. A woman's intuition told her that the relationship between Wang Ling and Audiobook wasn't simply that of a senior and a junior. Although Lotus Sun had told her earlier that Wang Xiao and Wang Ling were disciples that Audiobook had secretly taken in, Jamiya Ryoko still felt that there was something wrong with the way Audiobook looked at Wang Ling. What kind of Shifu looked at their disciples with admiration? And the way Audiobook looked at him was the same way Zhou was looking at him now. So, why on earth was it like this? Jamiya Ryoko started to feel a little confused. Classmate Wang Ling, is this a competition? Jamiya Ryoko asked curiously. Yes. Audiobook nodded. As my disciple, of course I have to be concerned as his Shifu. After Audiobook said this, Jamiya Ryoko fell silent again. She took a bite of the sweet and sour spare ribs, and for some reason, felt that they were particularly sour today. On the other side, when Zhou heard that Wang Ling was Audiobook's disciple, he also felt a little upset. It turned out that Brother Zhou already had a disciple. Ah, that was true. Wasn't it very normal for such an outstanding person like Brother Zhou to have two disciples? Zhou quickly adjusted his mentality, and his eyes quickly returned to normal as he stared fixedly at the image on the TV. He had wanted to study Wang Ling's charisma for Audiobook to take him in as a disciple. Just as he turned his gaze, the crisp sound of a slap rang out on the TV, because at that very moment, classmate Mikura Wei Ming, who was in the second round of the competition with Wang Ling, was slapping himself for some reason. Chapter 1567. Huagua Water Curtain Group. Jiang Xiaoche was working overtime again today, because it was almost time to get off work. Old Man Sun had summoned Jiang Xiaoche. There were all kinds of snacks and different flavors of popcorn on the old man's table. And he had even hired a dessert chef to make desserts on the spot. Jiang Xiaoche felt that this scene was a little familiar. He subconsciously glanced at the time, puzzled by Old Man Sun's behavior. This wasn't the time for the World Cup. It wasn't the time for League of Valor's S99 Global Finals. And it wasn't the time for Old Man Sun's favorite TV series or variety shows. Recently, the popular variety show Big Brothers Who Stir Up Trouble was Old Man Sun's favorite. Old Man Sun was a fashionable old man. In order to catch up with young people and gain a better understanding of their market, he never resisted learning about new things. But this scene in front of him wasn't common. Xiaoche, come and sit down. I was just worried that no one would watch the competition with me. Old Man Sun called out. Old Man Sun fiddled with the magic ball on the table, and a three-dimensional holographic image immediately appeared in the air. This is... Jiang Xiaoche looked at this scene hesitantly, because the scene in front of him instantly made him notice a familiar person. It was that pretty boy called Wang Ling. This is the live broadcast of classmate Wang Ling's exchange student competition on Sun Island. Old Man Sun said. Jiang Xiaoche was a little confused. But I remember that classmate Wang Ling participated in a closed-door competition. Because of his connection with Sun Island's business, Jiang Xiaoche actually had a certain level of understanding of Sun Island. It was Lotus Sun who had found him and asked him to sign the 2 billion yuan deal with Sakai Toyonian's family. So this old man also paid a certain price. Old Man Sun said. Price? Isn't the organizer the Sun Island Alliance of 10,000 schools? This old man agreed to be the title sponsor for their follow-up large-scale competition, which was how I managed to get this video. Hearing this, Jiang Xiaoche's heart inexplicably ached a little. But master, I still don't know why you called me here. No buts. Chatting with me is part of your duty as Secretary General. Master, I have to be with my girlfriend today. Don't give me that. You still want to pretend that you have a girlfriend in front of me? You might have many female companions, but even now, you are still a lonely old man. Don't think I don't know. These words were like a whip that deeply lashed at Jiang Xiaoche's heart, causing him to be immediately stunned on the spot. Old man Sun said, "Sit down. I'm looking for you this time because I want to watch the game with you and then have a casual chat. I think you've always misunderstood student Wang Ling." Hearing this, Jiang Xiaoche was instantly stunned. He thought that no one would know what he had done. However, he never thought that he could not escape the old man's eyes in the end. Old man Sun in front of him was the one who hid the most. "Have a seat, little Che." Old man Sun smiled kindly. "All right." The amiable light in those eyes was like a spring breeze caressing one's face. Jiang Xiaoche could not refuse, and at the same time he felt ashamed. He didn't dare to look old man Sun in the eye. He could only sit by the side. As he watched, Jiang Xiaoche realized that this match seemed a little different from what he had imagined. Why did that Sun Island native student keep slapping his own face? Meanwhile, the battle between Wang Ling and Mikura Weimei was still going on. To be honest, Mikura Weimei had been against the idea of a rigged match at first. But the conditions that Yuki Kuniyama had offered him were too good. It had always been his dream to study abroad. His grades at Kawada High School were excellent, and he had received a lot of scholarships every year. But it was unrealistic to rely on these meager scholarships to study abroad. The most important thing was that the school could only recommend a few students to study abroad each year. You could count them on your fingers. It was said that the students with the best grades would be selected. But in practice, these places were destined to be reserved for those who had the connections. Mikura Weimei had no background or power, and secondly, he had no money. It would be a fool's dream for him to get a recommendation. Thus, Mikura Weimei had already made plans the next day. He clearly knew that a rigged match was in fact a very shameful thing to do, but he was still willing to do it. Because right now he was nothing. The only thing he could do was endure for the time being, and become someone else's pawn. As long as he could get through this and officially breathe the air of freedom in Mishio Nation, everything would be worth it. What he had to do was to endure it silently. A rigged match had to be rigged. Watching Mikura Weimei slap himself again and again, Wang Ling's thoughts were inexplicably complicated. The Wang family, for example, were actually just ordinary commoners. But under the influence of Father and Mother Wang's education since young, Wang Ling knew better than anyone else how to be content with what he had. Wang Ling had never thought about studying abroad, because the moon was the same everywhere in the world. Even if he went abroad, the moon might not necessarily be rounder. But just because he thought this way didn't mean that other people thought the same. Mikura Weimei wanted to rise and obtain better resources, and use his own efforts to give his family a better life. There was nothing wrong with this in itself. Why is that person hitting himself? In front of the TV, Zhou Zi was puzzled. He probably made an agreement with someone to drag my disciple down with him through a rigged match. Ajua picked up a pepper and salt pork chop, and put it in Jamiya Ryoko's bowl. This scene lifted Jamiya Ryoko's mood a little, but then she saw Ajua pick up another chop and put it in Zhou Zi's bowl. Jamiya Ryoko. The way Sun Island judges a rigged match is very simple. First, it's based on basic combat strength, and second, it's based on overall combat strength. As long as the side with the higher combat strength is suspected of going easy, it's very easy to judge it as a rigged match. Then, both sides will be disqualified. Then isn't classmate Wang Ling in danger? Zhou Zi stared fixedly at the screen. To be honest, if he had been in this situation, he definitely wouldn't have known what to do. He wanted to see how Wang Ling would deal with it. Wang Ling watched as Mikura Weimei slapped himself again and again, leaving crisscrossed handprints on his originally thin little face. He was as heavy-handed as Kanzuya Sakai from before. These slaps on the face were in fact infused with inner strength. Mikura Weimei was deliberately giving himself internal injuries. But Wang Ling could see that. Mikura Weimei didn't want to do that. As he slapped himself, he couldn't stop the tears from rolling down his cheeks. They were silent tears. It wasn't because of the pain. The moment he faced Mikura Weimei, Wang Ling had already known everything. Yuki Kuniyama's request for Mikura Weimei was for him to injure him as much as possible, then fall to the ground and play dead, to deliberately let Wang Ling win. and thus judge it as a rigged match. That was to say, there were many ways to judge a rigged match. But Mikuro Uemei had chosen one. A way that wouldn't hurt anyone. Because the final result would be the same. He just needed to achieve his goal of rigging the match. Although he knew that choosing to study abroad in this way was extremely unfair to Wang Ling. Even if he didn't hurt Wang Ling, he would still have a bad reputation for rigging the match. Mikuro Uemei couldn't think of any way to make up for it. Thus, he could only use this method. After so many years, he had endured it all. Powerless and powerless, he had drifted with the tide on this small cultivation island just so that his family could live a better life. At the same time, he slapped himself. Shame, resistance, and the intense loneliness of struggling alone suddenly welled up in his heart. Tears fell uncontrollably from Mikuro Uemei's eyes. At that moment, he saw Wang Ling slowly approach him with his hands in his trouser pockets. "No, don't come near me, Long-san." Mikuro Uemei's face was already so swollen that he couldn't speak. He was roaring in his heart. He thought that no one could understand his helplessness and loneliness. But the truth was that when Wang Ling gradually approached him and looked him in the eye, Wang Ling's expression changed. In a split second, Mikuro Uemei suddenly felt his mind go blank, and he actually fell into a trance. What is this? At that moment, an empty universe appeared in Mikuro Uemei's mind. In the boundless universe, there wasn't even a single star. He saw the lonely figure of the King Ling. Mikuro Uemei's heart was instantly moved. He couldn't imagine the scene in his mind. He had thought that he was already the loneliest person in the world. But he had never expected that the loneliness in the heart of the youngster standing in front of him would be far greater than his. That feeling of helplessness, desolation, and solitude crept over him like a crawling worm. And Mikuro Uemei's mind instantly went blank. Bystanders couldn't tell what was happening at all. Mikuro Uemei's body went limp and he fell forward. Wang Ling carefully caught his body and slowly laid him flat on the ground. That move just now was called the Great Loneliness Spell. It was also one of the gentler spells among Wang Ling's current Heavenly Dao spells. There weren't any side effects. The victim would feel 1/1000th of Wang Ling's loneliness, and would gradually stop thinking under the impact of this loneliness. Thus, Mikuro Uemei closed his eyes just like that, as expected. Wang Ling stared at the youngster on the ground without the slightest ripple of emotion on his face. Before he left, he cast a spirit light on Mikuro Uemei's face. The swollen face that Mikuro Uemei had slapped almost deformed instantly returned to normal. You're tuning in to the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.